Chapter 687. The wide plains were all dark red in color, giving off an oppressive feeling. If one were to sense it carefully, they would even be able to detect traces of blood aura from the dark red soil. However, no one knew if the dark red soil was originally like this, or if it was dyed in blood. In the boundless blood plains, a figure flitted past as fast as lightning. This figure was as fast as a ghost, appearing hundreds of meters away every time. Moreover, what was even stranger was that the figure was too terrifying. It did not even make a sound. One could only see a slight breeze, and the figure instantly disappeared. However, from the back view that was left behind when it stopped, one could vaguely make out that the figure was very young. This figure was naturally Lin Xian. When he first came to the blood plains, he wanted to fly in the air. However, he soon saw a rookie like him, who was shot down from the sky not long after flying in the air. The attack's aura was extremely terrifying, and it even carried a trace of martial soul power. Seeing this, Lin Xian gave up on flying and chose to walk on the ground. He had no choice. Flying in the air was too eye-catching, especially with the glow on his body. He was like a moving target, and it was difficult not to be discovered. Out of safety precaution, Lin Xian chose to walk on the ground. With an Earth-class movement technique, Lin Xian's speed was very fast. Finally, after 2 hours, he saw the outline of a city in front of him. Looking at the city, Lin Xian let out a smile and increased his speed. Finally, he arrived in front of the city and stopped. The city was not big. It was just an ordinary town, and the city walls were mottled and very old. Lin Xian took a few quick glances before he strode forward. There were 5 or 6 veterans at the city gate. At this moment, they were playing a game similar to dice. When they saw Lin Xian's figure, they stopped what they were doing and picked up the spears on the ground. They crossed their spears and blocked the city gate. Moreover, their originally lazy faces had become fierce and ferocious. Waves of terrifying killing intent were emitted from their bodies. "Kid, you're not following the rules. Do you want to die?" One of the men shouted coldly. There was a scar on the left side of the man's face. It was about the length of a finger and looked like a centipede crawling on his face. At this moment, it looked extremely ferocious. Lin Xian stopped in his tracks and frowned as he looked ahead. The 6 burly men in front of him were all wearing green light armor, and there was a ferocious wolf head on their chests. "Rules? What rules?" Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. "You don't even know the rules? Don't tell me he's a newbie?" The burly men were stunned for a moment before they burst into laughter. They couldn't sense Lin Xian's cultivation, so they thought that Lin Xian was just a weak rookie dado. "Brat, you dared to come to the Blood Realm at such a young age? Are you not afraid of death? Look at your small body. If I let you in, you'll probably die on the streets the next day." The burly men laughed wildly, making fun of Lin Xian. Lin Xian said indifferently, "I came with my master's sect, but we arrived a little early." "All right, we don't care who you came with. This city is under the jurisdiction of the Green Wolf Gang. If you want to enter, you have to pay 10,000 spiritual stones." 10,000? Lin Xian frowned. One had to know that 10,000 spiritual stones was not a small number. In Quicksand City, it only costs 1,000 spiritual stones to watch a top-notch martial arts competition. But now, it cost 10,000 spiritual stones just to enter the city. As expected of the Blood Realm, it was truly unscrupulous. Shaking his head, Lin Xian didn't want to look for trouble. With a swipe of his finger, he took out 10,000 spiritual stones from his storage ring. The burly men were stunned. They didn't expect Lin Xian, who looked weak and ordinary, to take out 10,000 spiritual stones so easily. Moreover, it looked like these spiritual stones were just a small number to him. Especially when they saw the storage ring in Lin Xian's hand, their eyes lit up with greed. It was a very exquisite storage ring with ancient patterns carved on it. From time to time, it would flash with light. They had only seen storage rings of this grade in the hands of their gang leader. And now, an unknown brat actually had such a precious storage ring? They looked at each other and sneered. "Fat sheep, this was definitely a fat sheep. The scarred man quickly put away the 10,000 spiritual stones and said coldly, "Kid, I think you didn't understand. When I said 10,000 spiritual stones, I meant 10,000 each. So, you have to pay 60,000 spiritual stones. Hurry up and pay. Otherwise, if you piss off the Green Wolf Gang, we'll kill you in minutes." The 6 burly men looked at Lin Xian and sneered. Lin Xian frowned. 60,000 spiritual stones was nothing to him, but they were obviously trying to extort him. He wasn't a fool who would be taken advantage of. "Damn it, didn't you understand what I said?" Another burly man said coldly. "If you know what's good for you, hand over your storage ring and I'll let you in. Otherwise, be careful of your dog life." After saying that, he pulled out the long saber at his waist. The saber flashed with a cold light. Lin Xian laughed. The Blood Realm was indeed worthy of its reputation. Even the 6 guards dared to be so arrogant. They even wanted to kill him and steal his treasures? If it was any other place, it would be impossible. But in the Blood Realm, it seemed reasonable. Seeing Lin Xian's disdainful smile, the 6 burly men were enraged. "Little thing, I think you have a death wish. Men, cut off his limbs and feed them to the dogs," the scarred man said coldly. Then, one of the burly men walked out with a sinister smile and slashed at Lin Xian with his long saber. Crack! A crisp sound was heard. Lin Xian caught the long saber with both hands. Then, under the horrified gazes of the 6 men, he turned his fingers. Suddenly, the long saber turned into white powder and scattered on the ground. With a gentle breeze, it disappeared. "What?" The 6 burly men's eyes almost popped out, especially the one who was still holding the saber hilt. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He had spent a lot of money to buy that long saber. It was a low-grade spiritual-grade treasure. In the past, it was very fierce when cutting people. But now, it had been turned into powder with 2 fingers. An expert, an absolute expert. The 6 of them were not fools. They trembled and immediately said respectfully, "Senior, please spare our lives. Please spare our lives. We have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please be magnanimous and let us go." The 6 burly men trembled and kept slapping their faces. They almost knelt down. "Senior, here are your 10,000 mid-grade spirit stones," the scarred man said with a trembling voice. "Humph! Only this time. There won't be a next time." Lin Xian put away the spirit stones, snorted, and walked into the city. "Yes, yes, yes!" The 6 guards nodded like chickens pecking at rice. After confirming that Lin Xian had really left, they heaved a sigh of relief. "Damn, that was so scary. We were almost finished. It was too dangerous. It was even more terrifying than the battlefield. Look at him. Is he a genius disciple of a big faction?" The few of them whispered with lingering fear. "Damn it, keep your eyes open in the future. We were lucky this time. If we make a mistake again, I'm afraid we're dead," the scarred man shouted in a deep voice. Chapter 688. Broken Mountain City. Inside the city, Lin Xian walked in the city, enjoying the unique blood-filled city. In such a short period of time, he had already seen 3 fights, and one of them had even resulted in a life. However, the body was quickly carried away by the Green Wolf Gang in light armor, leaving behind a pool of blood. The winner would take the storage ring and other resources, while the loser would lose their lives and be fed to the dogs. Lin Xian planned to get a map first and find the way to Senmu College as soon as possible. However, in the process of buying the map, he was quickly exposed as a rookie. "Hey, there's another newcomer. He looks so weak. He dares to come out alone with such a cultivation level? If this guy dares to stay, I guarantee he won't live past tonight. I haven't eaten fresh meat in a long time. That kid looks pretty good." All sorts of discussions rang out. The voices were very loud and had no intention of hiding it. Lin Xian put away the map with a speechless expression. He was wondering if he should show off a little bit of his strength to prevent these flies from stopping. Just as he stood up, a disgusting voice came from behind him. "This pretty boy is not bad. Carry him back. I want to eat meat today." As soon as this was said, the surrounding people discussed even more. He's actually been targeted by the poison lady. This kid is really unlucky. Looks like there's no need for tomorrow. I don't think he'll live past tonight." Many people were gloating and watching the show from the side. The poison lady was lustful by nature. She relied on the power behind her to capture young and handsome martial artists as her gigolos. However, when she got tired of them, she would kill them mercilessly. Who knew how many young martial artists she had harmed over the years? At this moment, two burly men laughed sinisterly and grabbed at Lin Xian. The air trembled, and an ear-piercing sound rang out. Both of them were late-stage spirit-detecting realm martial artists. This grab was very frightening. However, this bit of strength was not enough to deal with Lin Xian. Everyone only saw a blur before two miserable screams rang out. The two burly men flew back while protecting their wrists and fell to the ground, screaming. "What? Good skills. I almost misjudged him. He's actually an expert. Fortunately, I didn't make a move just now." To be able to injure two late-stage spirit-detecting realm cultivators in one move, he had to be at the peak. Although he wasn't at the peak, he wasn't weak either. The surrounding martial artists were even more excited because they knew that Madame Du wouldn't let the matter rest. Sure enough, a fat woman at the back who weighed more than 150 kilograms was so angry that her entire body was trembling. The fat on her body was rolling like waves. The plump lips that were painted red opened at this moment, and then a sharp voice sounded. "Ah! How dare you resist me? Tonight I'll suck you dry. You guys go." Immediately, four strong men in green rushed over to her side. The four of them moved like the wind, causing the ground to tremble slightly. However, it was still not enough. Lin Xian's figure flickered like a ghost. In an instant he appeared in the middle of the four and slapped out. "Pa pa pa!" Four crisp sounds rang out. Immediately, the four people's faces swelled up like pig heads as they were sent flying. His teeth were bleeding all over the ground. This was because Lin Xian had held back. Otherwise, the four of them would have been turned into meat paste. Madame Du screamed again when she saw this scene. However, before she could make a sound, Lin Xian appeared beside her and slapped out. Boom! The 150-kilogram fat figure turned into a meatball and flew out, crashing into a house behind them. The house was instantly destroyed. Dust filled the air and the ground trembled. Everyone was stunned. This youth was too fierce. Did he not know the identity of Madame Du? Hua! Crack! Behind them, countless rocks flew out from the ruins of the house. A fat figure sat up. It was Madame Du. She stared at Lin Xian and screamed, "Brat, do you know who I am? My big brother is the manager of the Green Wolf Gang. You're dead for offending me. Scram or die." Lin Xian was cold and his voice was like thunder. "You..." Madame Du wanted to say something, but her body suddenly trembled and she felt her face heat up. She wiped her hand and found that it was covered in blood. "Ah!" She screamed in horror. She could no longer care about anything else, and quickly jumped up and ran into the distance. It was hard to believe that a 150-kilogram woman could run at that speed. The surrounding cultivators were shocked and did not dare to speak. This young man was not even afraid of the Green Wolf Gang. He was too fierce. Of course, there were also people who shook their heads and sneered. They thought that Lin Xian was just a rash brat who had just arrived. One had to know that the Green Wolf Gang was the overlord of Broken Mountain City. Their leader, Zhao Kuan, had even reached the half-step venerable realm. His strength was terrifying and almost no one in Broken Mountain City could compare to him. Although this young man was powerful, he was definitely not a match for Zhao Kuan. In a mansion in the city. This was the mansion of the manager of the Green Wolf Gang. It was very luxurious. The manager of the Green Wolf Gang was a middle-aged man. He had a long face, a thin figure, and a sinister look in his eyes. At this moment, he was admiring the flowers in his garden. At this moment, a fat figure quickly barged in. Big brother, you have to avenge me. Madame Du was like a mountain of meat. She moved horizontally on the ground and roared crazily. What's going on? Manager Du's face darkened when he saw the handprint on the fat girl's face. Soon Madame Du told him what had happened. A young man who came here willingly? Manager Du's expression was cold. Did you tell him your identity? I did. Madame Du added fuel to the fire. Who knew that the kid would not care and even insulted Big Brother? He's too despicable. He doesn't put Big Brother and the Green Wolf Gang in his eyes at all. All right, I've got it, Manager Du said in a deep voice. A small cultivator actually dares to behave atrociously in my territory. He must be tired of living. Eagle! Manager Du shouted in a low voice. Whoosh! A figure quickly flew in from outside the courtyard. Like a goshawk, he instantly arrived behind Manager Du. It was a man in black. He was not tall, but his eyes were sharp. His palms, especially, were twice the size of an ordinary person's. Moreover, he wore a metal glove on his palm. It was dark and glowing, making one's heart tremble. There's something I need you to do. Eagle was Manager Du's hired thug. His cultivation was very high, reaching the peak of the spirit detecting realm. His pair of black demon eagle claws were extremely sharp. In Broken Mountain City, he was considered a top expert. Usually, he would stay in Manager Du's residence to protect his safety. He would only be called out if there was an emergency. This time, his target was a young man of 18 or 19 years old. Eagle was disdainful. In his opinion, this young man relied on his abundant resources at most to increase his cultivation. If he met a combat expert like him, he would definitely be scared witless. The Green Wolf Gang controlled the entire Broken Mountain City, so he easily found the young man's whereabouts. With a sneer, Eagle soared into the sky like a real goshawk. Chapter 689. Lin Xian was eating at Cloud Pub. On his table was a map of the Blood Realm that he had just bought. There were many martial artists eating around him, all of them wild and wild. They were all discussing the exciting events that had occurred in the Blood Realm. In terms of exciting events, there were only two kinds: killing people and women. Their discussions were inseparable from these two things. At this time, a figure walked into Cloud Pub, causing all the noise to die down. The entire pub fell silent, so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Those arrogant martial artists looked at the figure at the door, their faces filled with shock, their bodies trembling. Old Eagle, why is he here? Everyone was shocked. They knew that Old Eagle was an expert of the Azure Wolf Gang. Normally, he would only be sent to handle extremely difficult matters. But in this pub, was there anyone worthy of Old Eagle taking action? They didn't know. Pun! A throwing knife flew out, nailing itself to Lin Xian's table. It trembled, causing the air to buzz. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to scram. Otherwise, your fate will be the same as his. As he spoke, Old Eagle stared at Lin Xian, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Hua! In the next moment, everyone in the pub left with all their might, their speed truly reaching the limit. They knew that this was Old Eagle's habit. He would clear the area before killing someone. And what shocked them even more was that the person Old Eagle wanted to kill was a youth. Who is this youth? He actually angered the Azure Wolf Gang? Hey, you don't know? Someone immediately spoke of how Lin Xian had injured Madame Du. Everyone suddenly understood. He dared to attack Madame Du. He's seeking death. Doesn't he know that Madame Du is Chief Steward Du's little sister? Young and impetuous, such a person must be a disciple of a noble family. Does he think that the Blood Realm is the same as the outside world? What a joke! As everyone was discussing, the pub's door slammed shut. Hell, I heard that Old Eagle kills very slowly. He once tortured a martial artist for 3 days before killing him. I wonder how many days it was this time? I think it's about the same this time. That boy will definitely die in pain and despair. Creak! But in the next moment, the pub's door opened. What? It ended so quickly? That's not right. This doesn't fit Old Eagle's personality. Everyone was puzzled. They raised their heads and looked over. Then, their bodies began to tremble as they stood there, dumbstruck. This was because the one who had walked out of the tavern was not Old Eagle, but that handsome and silent youth. The young man narrowed his eyes as if he was sensing something. Then, the corner of his lips curled up and he quickly left. What's going on? Did Old Eagle not kill him? Perhaps this young man's background is so shocking that Old Eagle does not dare to kill him? It's possible. Everyone was guessing, feeling that the young man was more and more mysterious. Should we go in and take a look? There were also some martial artists who found it rather strange that Old Eagle had yet to come out. Soon, a few bold martial artists decided to go in and take a look. 3 silhouettes rushed in quickly, followed by a scream of surprise. Immediately, the surrounding martial artists were bewildered, and they all moved out. When they arrived at the tavern, they were stunned once again. Because Old Eagle was dead. Old Eagle lay on the ground, his entire body intact. His eyes were filled with shock, and there was a bloody hole between his brows. It was this bloody hole that took his life. How is that possible? Old Eagle was actually killed? There are no signs of fighting in this room, and we did not hear any sounds of fighting. Could it be that he was killed in one blow? Someone analyzed, and then everyone gasped. If that was the case, then it was too terrifying. One had to know that Old Eagle was a martial artist at the limit of the spirit-detecting realm, and he was also a famous expert in the city. For such a person to be killed in one blow, one could imagine how terrifying the other party was. Could it be that it was not a young man, but some old monster? Everyone's hearts trembled, because they had heard that some old monsters who had lived for hundreds of years liked to appear in the form of young men. They now suspected that the one who killed Old Eagle was also such an old monster. The Green Wolf Gang was very powerful in Broken Mountain City, so they knew of Old Eagle's death immediately. A group of people rushed over in a grandiose manner and surrounded the Cloud Pub. Then, a middle-aged man with a long face walked out of the crowd. This person was Chief Steward Du. Chief Steward Du's expression was very ugly. He had sent out experts, but they were all killed in one blow. This made him very angry, but at the same time, he also felt a trace of fear. Listening to the analysis of the experts in the gang, coupled with Chief Steward Du's own judgment, his expression became more and more unsightly. Moreover, until now, they still had not found out what caused the bloody hole between Old Eagle's eyebrows. Chief Steward Du, what do we do? The Green Wolf Gang members asked. Investigate. We must catch that brat. Chief Steward Du said sternly. No one can challenge our Green Wolf Gang in Broken Mountain City. Yes. The group of Green Wolf Gang members shouted, then quickly went to collect information. Lin Xian naturally did not care about Chief Steward Du and the others' actions. He also did not know that his casual killing of Old Eagle had caused such a great shock to Chief Steward Du and the others. To be honest, he did not put a martial artist like Old Eagle in his eyes. At that time, Old Eagle had used his spirit energy to seal the tavern and was incomparably arrogant. Lin Xian had only dipped his fingertip in a drop of water and then flicked it out. However, that drop of water contained a terrifying sword intent. Old Eagle was only at the limit of the spirit-detecting realm, so he could not block it and could only fall with despair. Lin Xian knew that after he killed Old Eagle, the Green Wolf Gang would be completely enraged, so he now had a way to completely solve this problem. Lin Xian spread out his spirit energy and covered the entire Broken Mountain City. He quickly searched. Soon after, he discovered that there were 2 places with defensive formations, one of which was especially powerful. He knew that was where the Green Wolf Gang's leader was. Lin Xian's figure flashed, and he disappeared like a gust of wind. The leader of the Green Wolf Gang, Zhao Kun, was currently enjoying himself in his own palace. He was hugging 2 beauties and drinking wine. As the leader, he only needed to make decisions on important matters. He would leave the trivial matters to Chief Steward Du, and he would enjoy himself and cultivate. Zhao Kun admired the snake-like waists of the dancers below and laughed loudly. But suddenly his voice stopped. Because he saw a person. A youth was standing in the middle of the palace. The two flirtatious women beside him also noticed it. They exclaimed and rubbed their eyes hard. They realized that they weren't dreaming. Zhao Kun's face immediately sank. Men, come quickly! What are you doing? Are you all trash? Zhao Kun was furious. A stranger had actually snuck into his palace, and even the guards did not know. This made him furious. Moreover, he was even more shocked. One had to know that his palace had a defensive formation. Even if an outsider tried to break in, they would be the first to know. But now, the formation's alarm had not gone off, but a mysterious person had appeared in his palace. This made him uneasy. Chapter 690. Zhao Kun was shocked as he stared at the young figure in front of him. Although he couldn't sense the other party's cultivation, the fact that he could silently pass through the defensive formation of his residence was enough to show how terrifying the intruder was. Who are you? What are you doing here? Who told you to come here? Zhao Kun suddenly roared as a powerful aura emanated from his body. This aura was very powerful, and it carried a terrifying sound wave that spread throughout the entire space. Immediately, the dancers screamed and fled, and countless warriors rushed over from afar. The Crimson Dragon jumped out and looked at the warriors around him with a disdainful smile. Then, it spat out clouds that enveloped the entire hall. Seeing the Crimson Dragon's means, Zhao Kun frowned again and said in a deep voice, Who are you? What are you doing here? Although the guards outside could enter, Zhao Kun was still confident in himself as a half-step venerable. You don't have to care who I am. You just need to remember one thing. While I'm in Broken Mountain City, don't let your men harass me. Otherwise, I don't mind destroying the Green Wolf Gang. Lin Xian said lightly, but his voice was like a sharp sword that pierced into Zhao Kun's heart. Destroy the Green Wolf Gang? Zhao Kun sneered. Kid, I think you're out of your mind. How dare you boast so shamelessly? My Green Wolf Gang has 100,000 members. We can drown you with our spit. You dare to say that you'll destroy the Green Dragon Gang? What a joke! The two flirtatious women beside him also laughed as if they had heard the funniest joke. Is that so? Lin Xian smiled indifferently and then disappeared into thin air. Seeing Lin Xian's actions, Zhao Kun was shocked. He circulated his spirit energy with all his might to form a defense around him. At the same time, he unleashed the power of his martial soul prototype, ready to attack at any time. Spirit energy surged and shone in all directions. A 30-meter-tall green wolf phantom appeared and roared at the sky, enveloping Zhao Kun. The sound rumbled and shook the surroundings. The green wolf phantom was mighty and extraordinary like a demonic beast. After unleashing the green wolf phantom, Zhao Kun laughed wildly as if he had won. This green wolf phantom was the embryonic form of his martial soul, and no one in the entire Broken Mountain City could match it. But in the next moment, the sword light flashed, and the azure wolf phantom wailed and fell to the ground. Zhao Kun's body stiffened as fear appeared in his eyes. This was because a sharp blade was pressed against his neck. At this moment, blood was spurting out from the sharp blade. Moreover, the entire hall was filled with an extremely powerful and fierce aura. Zhao Kun's entire body froze. He had no doubt that if he dared to move, that sharp blade would cut off his neck. Spare my life. Please spare my life. Zhao Kun fell to his knees with a thud. Misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. How dare the Green Wolf Gang offend you? The flirtatious women on both sides were even more frightened and dumbstruck. They never would have thought that the Green Wolf Gang's leader, who was famous throughout Mountain Break City, would be kneeling in front of this mysterious youth like a dog. There is no misunderstanding, Lin Xian said coldly. Remember, if the Green Wolf Gang dares to harass me again, you don't need to exist anymore. Yes, yes, yes. I promise that no one will dare to harass you in the future. Zhao Kun nodded continuously. In the next moment, he felt the sharp blade on his neck disappear, and so did the extremely terrifying aura. However, he still did not dare to move. After a long time, he slowly turned around and realized that the mysterious youth was no longer in the hall. Phew! Zhao Kun heaved a sigh of relief and sat on the ground. His entire body was drenched in sweat. Facing that youth made him feel like he was facing the leader of the Green Wolf Gang. That's right. Although the Green Wolf Gang dominated the entire Mountain Break City, it was only a branch. A branch that belonged to the Green Red Gang. Zhao Kun wiped off his cold sweat and then shouted, "Everyone, gather!" His voice was like thunder, spreading throughout the entire residence. In an instant, countless figures rushed over to this side. Looking at the increasing number of figures, Zhao Kun said sternly, "Call all the brothers outside back. No one is allowed to go out for 10 days. Leader, why is that?" Some of them did not understand. "What are you all talking about? If I tell you to do it, then hurry up and do it. Do you all want to rebel?" His voice was terrifying and filled the entire hall with a fierce, murderous aura. "Yes," the gang members hurriedly replied. They did not understand why their leader, who was fine before, was so angry now. There were many disciples in the Green Wolf Gang, and Mountain Break City was not very big. Soon, all of them received the order. Although they were shocked by the order to not go out for 10 days, no one dared to ask. However, there was one exception, and that was Steward Du. At this moment, there were not many people in Steward Du's residence. The experts in Steward Du had all disappeared. This news quickly reached Zhao Kun's ears. "Where is Steward Du?" Zhao Kun asked in a low voice. He did not want anything to happen to his right-hand man at this moment. "Leader, Steward Du brought the experts in the gang to take revenge." "Revenge? What revenge?" Zhao Kun frowned. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Immediately, someone told him about Madame Du. When Zhao Kun heard that Old Eagle was killed in one move, his entire face turned green. "That's right, it's him, it must be him!" Zhao Kun roared in his heart. He remembered the mysterious young man from before. One had to know that even he could not kill Old Eagle in one move. Only that mysterious young man could do this. Recalling the previous warning, Zhao Kun broke out in cold sweat again. "Where is Steward Du?" Zhao Kun asked sternly. 100 Mile Inn. Go to 100 Mile Inn." Zhao Kun panicked, and his face turned ugly. He was praying that Steward Du would not do anything. 100 Mile Inn. Lin Xian had just settled down when he was surrounded by a group of people. The leader was a middle-aged man with a long face. His eyes were sinister like a poisonous snake. Around him were burly men who were dozens of meters tall. Their auras were thick and their bodies were murderous. Although they were dressed differently, each of them had a wolf's head on their heads. They looked ferocious and terrifying. "Green Wolf Gang!" When the other martial artists in the inn saw this scene, they were so scared that they ran away. Suddenly, there was no one in a 10-mile radius. Everyone hid in the distance and quietly watched. They did not expect Steward Du to bring so many experts. It seemed that the kid was dead for sure. "Kid, you are ruthless and arrogant. You actually killed my Green Wolf Gang's disciple." Steward Du sneered. "I'll give you a chance now. Kneel down and cripple your hands, let your cultivation be crippled, and then beg me like a dog. If I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll let you go." The surrounding martial artists laughed wildly. They looked at Lin Xian as if they were looking at a dead man. Lin Xian frowned slightly. It seemed that his previous warning did not have any effect. If that was the case, then he could not be blamed. He raised his finger, and a sharp sword aura gradually formed. Chapter 691. Lin Xian was furious. His warning did not work, so it seemed that he could only destroy the Green Wolf Gang. Seeing Lin Xian condensing the sword chi, Steward Du and the others were enraged. How dare a young brat seek death in front of so many of them? "Go, destroy him!" Steward Du shouted coldly. Beside him, Madame Du also grinned. Brat, how dare you defy me? This is your fate. Behind her, dozens of people drew their swords and sabers. A terrifying aura swept across the area. The wind howled and the murderous aura surged. It was as if ghosts were crying and wolves were howling. At that moment, a furious roar came from afar. Everyone, stop! The voice was even more violent. It was as if thousands of horses were galloping, rolling in the void. Boom! The cultivators who were about to attack all trembled and were pushed back by the sound. Steward Dew was even more shocked. Leader? Why is he here? The others were equally shocked. They were all like stone statues and did not dare to move. Leader, it's just killing a brat. You don't have to do such a small thing. Steward Dew quickly walked forward and said with a smile. Smack! Zhao Kun was so angry that his body trembled. He did not dare to look at Lin Xian and slapped Steward Dew. Small thing? You're telling me this is a small thing? That slap was full of strength. Even if Steward Dew was an ultimate powerhouse, he could not withstand it. With that slap, Steward Dew's face turned into a pig's head. Beside him, Madame Dew was also stunned. She shrieked, Leader, are you confused? Why did you hit the wrong person? Hit the wrong person? Zhao Kun stared at Madame Dew fiercely. It was this evil fat woman. Without her, he would not have provoked that terrifying young man. Thinking of the scene of him kneeling, Zhao Kun's face turned ferocious again. He took a step forward and instantly arrived in front of Madame Dew. Then he kicked out. Boom! That kick was like a hungry wolf pouncing on its prey. It was unusually fierce. Madame Dew could not withstand it. She wailed and turned into a meatball, flying backward. Only after it had pierced through dozens of houses did it fall into the ruins. Everyone was stunned. They could not understand why the leader would do that. However, in the next moment, they were shocked again. Their eyeballs almost fell out. Zhao Kun turned around. The ferocious killing intent on his face was gone, replaced by a smile. That smile seemed to be trying to curry favor. He walked to Lin Xian's side and asked softly, Hero, are you okay? You're not scared, are you? Whoosh! The surrounding Green Wolf Gang disciples felt their heads explode. The usually ferocious helper was actually speaking humbly to a young boy. Dreaming, they must be dreaming. Many people were slapping themselves in the face, trying to wake up from the nightmare. However, to their despair, they discovered that all of this was real. Head Steward Dew was even more frightened. He now knew why the helpers were angry. It turned out that it was all because of this young man in front of him. He didn't know who this delicate and pretty young man in front of him was for the gang leader to try to curry favor with him. However, he couldn't care less about these things. Right now, saving his life was the most important thing. Great hero! It's a misunderstanding. Manager Dew's face was swollen like a pig's head, and he could not speak clearly. Misunderstanding? Lin Xian sneered. Did I hear wrong? He was furious. If he was an ordinary person, he might have already been killed. Lin Xian would not show mercy to such evil people. You tell me, what did he do just now? Lin Xian pointed to a person next to him, and said. Suddenly, that person was terrified, and his face was very ugly. That speak! Zhao Kun turned his head, and his face was ferocious and terrifying again. Yes! That martial artist trembled in fear. Head Steward Dew said. He wants the great hero to kneel, break his own arms, destroy his own cultivation, and beg him like a dog. If he's in a good mood, he might let you go. Zhao Kun's face suddenly darkened. This was a blatant act of seeking death. He looked at Head Steward Dew, his eyes full of murderous intent. Even if you want to die, don't drag me down with you. Great hero, what do you think we should do? Zhao Kun asked carefully. You'll bear the consequences of your own words, Lin Xian said lightly. Zhao Kun nodded, indicating that he understood. Then he kicked Head Steward Dew and said, You know what to do. Head Steward Dew trembled. He naturally understood what the leader meant, but he was unwilling because until now, he still did not know the identity of this young man in front of him. Seeing Head Steward Du's unwilling eyes, Zhao Kun was furious. He snorted, waved his hands, and instantly slapped Head Steward Du's arms. Ka ka! Spiritual energy surged, it was incomparably vast. This blow directly broke Head Steward Du's arms. Ah! Head Steward Du suffered a heavy blow and roared crazily, his eyes revealing a look of horror. I'm not convinced! You still dare to talk back? Zhao Kun was angry, and kicked out again. This kick, it happened to hit Head Steward Du's abdomen, shattering his spiritual sea cyclone. Ah! My cultivation! Head Steward Du screamed, lying on the ground like a dead dog. He was constantly gasping for breath, his eyes red, staring at Lin Xian. He was not convinced, and at the same time, he was incomparably desperate. Without his cultivation, he was worse than a dog, and all of this was caused by this young man in front of him. He was filled with hatred. Lin Xian looked at Head Steward Du on the ground without a trace of pity. If he did not kill, he would be killed. Especially in a place like the Blood Realm, where only strength mattered, there was no need for pity. I don't want anyone to hate me, so you should know what to do, Lin Xian said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Zhao Kun's eyes flashed with a touch of fierceness. A dark green mass of air floated in his palm, carrying a shocking power. With a wave of his palm, the green aura surged and condensed into a wolf claw about 10 feet long in the air. It was lifelike. Boom! Head Steward Du was hit by this power, bleeding from his 7 orifices, and fell to the ground dead. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. They did not expect the leader to kill Head Steward Du personally. In the distance, Madame Du climbed up with difficulty and saw this scene. She immediately screamed in horror. Zhao Kun's expression was cold as he punched out. The void was torn apart, and the shadow of a green wolf formed by spiritual energy flew in the air and quickly swallowed Madame Du. Hero, are you satisfied? Zhao Kun asked softly. Lin Xian nodded slightly and did not pay attention to this matter. He said, Do you have a detailed map of the Blood Realm? Although he had bought one in the city, he was not satisfied with it. Yes. Seeing that Lin Xian did not pursue the matter, Zhao Kun secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He took out a blood-red map from his storage ring and handed it over respectfully. This map can't be said to be the most detailed in the Blood Realm, but it's definitely 10 times better than the ones sold in the shops. Lin Xian took it and found that the map was densely labeled. It was indeed very detailed. After accepting the map, Lin Xian glanced at Zhao Kun. Don't let this happen again. Otherwise, you know the consequences. Yes. Hero, don't worry, Zhao Kun said respectfully. Lin Xian snorted, then his figure flashed and disappeared. Chapter 692. Gang leader, what should we do? Are we just going to let it go? Finally, an old man stepped forward and asked tentatively. Zhao Kun's face was gloomy. He looked at the 2 corpses on the ground and said coldly, Go and send the corpses to Flying Tiger City. Tell them that they were killed. Hearing this, all the disciples trembled. The old man was pleasantly surprised. Don't worry, gang leader. I know what to do. Go. If you do this well, you'll be the manager from now on, Zhao Kun said lightly. Yes. I'll do it right away. The old man was ecstatic. He quickly ordered the disciples to carefully place the corpses and then quickly send them to Flying Tiger City. He knew that the gang leader must be afraid of the mysterious young man. Someone who could make the gang leader afraid was either an expert or had a special identity. In short, the mysterious young man was not to be trifled with. The Green Wolf gang could not take this lying down, so they decided to let Flying Tiger City do it. This was because Steward Du was the junior brother of the Flying Tiger City's governor. The death of Steward Du would definitely infuriate the governor. He was a martial artist stronger than Zhao Kun, a true venerable. Lin Xian did not know about the Green Wolf gang's little trick. At this moment, he had already left Broken Mountain City and set off according to the bloody map. He had to admit that Zhao Kun's map was very detailed, at least much more detailed than the one he bought. He found the fastest path, and used his movement technique to speed up his journey. The place Lin Xian was at was still at the edge of the Blood Realm, so there weren't many cities. Looking from afar, he could only see a vast expanse of dark red. Half a day later, he suddenly stopped and frowned. Because he had perfected the concept of wind, Lin Xian was very sensitive to the flow of wind around him. At this moment, he felt an extremely unusual wind fluctuation in front of him. This aura was very strong and very violent. It was definitely not an ordinary wind. Soon, Lin Xian saw a red mist on the horizon in front of him. It was like a sea of blood, surging endlessly. Accompanying it was an ear-piercing ghost howl. "This is a storm!" Lin Xian's pupils constricted. He had never seen such a powerful storm. The red storm was very fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived nearby. Violent winds swept through, uprooting the trees. Countless clouds of dust flew into the sky. They were like giant dragons roaring ferociously in the air. The sky howled as if it was being torn apart. Red cracks appeared as the terrifying power of wind swept out in all directions, destroying everything. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to escape. When an ordinary martial artist encountered a red storm, they could only pray. But Lin Xian was different. He possessed a perfect concept of wind, and his strength was incomparably powerful. In the next moment, strands of azure airflow appeared around him and lifted his body up. It was like a dream and an illusion, drifting indeterminately. With this concept of wind, the impact of the red storm was indeed reduced. Lin Xian drifted along with the red storm. Looking at the raging storm, he suddenly had an epiphany. His concept of wind had already been at the perfection stage for a long time, but he still hadn't reached the wind soul stage. He knew that this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. Unlike the sword soul, the concept of wind was completely comprehended by him alone. There were no shortcuts, so its speed was not as fast as the sword intent. But now, facing the red storm that filled the sky, he suddenly had a trace of epiphany. This process was very short, only a moment, but it was enough. Because he had a direction, he knew the future path of the concept of wind. As long as he comprehended more, it wouldn't take long for him to condense the wind's soul. The wind gradually weakened. The red storm was like a giant beast. It came quickly, but it also left quickly. Soon, it completely disappeared from this area, rushing towards other places. And Lin Xian summoned the Crimson Dragon, letting it protect him. "Damn, kid, are you a monster?" The Crimson Dragon was dissatisfied. "You can have an epiphany while rushing, are you sure you didn't do it on purpose?" Although the Crimson Dragon was dissatisfied, it still laid down a defensive array. Lin Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. In his mind, he constantly deduced and recalled the appearance of the red storm, carefully comprehending it. He felt that his understanding of the concept of wind had deepened a lot. At the same time, he created his own wild wind style based on the scene just now. With a wave of his palm, a wild wind rolled up. Monstrous air waves rolled, and a terrifying sound surged. It was as if the red storm had appeared again. The earth cracked, trees flew upside down, and turned into powder in the air. The distant mountain peak exploded, unable to bear this power. This palm was very similar to the red storm, full of a violent and destructive aura. "Ah! Help, the red storm is here again!" In the distance, a scream sounded. It was very miserable and desperate. After Lin Xian heard it, he looked surprised. He waved his hand, and withdrew this move. At the same time, his body swayed, and he rushed towards the source of the sound. The red storm was very terrifying. Everywhere it passed, it was severely damaged. The earth cracked, the cracks spread, and the mountains collapsed. It was a miserable scene. And in these ruins there was a thin youth, who was holding his head and screaming. "God, the red storm only appears once. Why did it appear again after it disappeared this time? God, I don't want to die!" The youth screamed. Lin Xian was surprised. He did not expect that there would be someone who could survive the red storm. Lin Xian smirked. Like a gust of wind, he silently came to the bamboo youth's side and then kicked him with the tip of his foot. Suddenly, the bamboo youth trembled and screamed crazily. "Ah, it's here! It's really here!" Lin Xian was speechless. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he could only say, "Hey, there's no storm. You don't have to be afraid." Hearing this, the youth on the ground stopped trembling. He quickly turned his head and looked around. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. He sat up and patted the dirt off his body. He stared at Lin Xian and snorted with dissatisfaction. "Why didn't you say there was no storm? Do you want to scare me to death?" This fellow had a grumbling expression. Lin Xian found it funny. At the same time, he was curious. The guy on the ground did not have a very high cultivation. How did he escape the red storm? "Hey, why are you looking at me like that?" The youth on the ground was dissatisfied and stood up. "Although I'm not strong, in terms of survival ability on the Scarlet Plain, even an ultimate warrior might not be as good as me." The youth was very confident. "What's your name?" Lin Xian asked. "Yu Fei," the youth said. Then, he was stunned. "Why should I tell you?" He stared at Lin Xian with an unfriendly expression. "You're so clean. Didn't you encounter the red storm? Kid, who are you?" "Newbie." Lin Xian shrugged. "You said your survival ability is strong? Other than the storm, what other dangers are there in the Scarlet Plain?" Yu Fei's eyes widened. He stared at Lin Xian for a few seconds, then said disdainfully, "You're really a newbie. Kid, listen carefully." Chapter 693. There are many dangers in the Scarlet Plains. Yu Fei snorted. Just the Scarlet Storm alone can take most people's lives, not to mention the other dangers. "What dangers?" Lin Xian asked. "Blood wolves, terrifying blood bandits, and the mysterious Scarlet Nether Realm. Every one of them is extremely terrifying. If you encounter them, very few people can leave alive." Yu Fei glanced at Lin Xian and snorted. "Kid, you're lucky that you didn't encounter the Scarlet Storm. Otherwise, you wouldn't even have the chance to stand here and speak." He didn't feel any terrifying aura from Lin Xian, so he thought that he was just an ordinary warrior. Lin Xian smiled and didn't expose him. He then took out the map, compared it, and prepared to leave. At this moment Yu Fei sneered. "You're really a newbie. How ignorant of you to use such a map in the Scarlet Plains. Kid, I can guarantee that you won't live more than 3 days with this map." "Why?" Lin Xian frowned. He didn't find anything wrong with the map. "Your map looks detailed, but it only marks the geographical environment of the Scarlet Plains. As for the divisions of the forces and forbidden areas, there are no markings at all. This kind of thing is only used to trick newbies like you. No veteran would use it." "Oh?" Lin Xian frowned. "Then what kind of map do you use?" "Kid, look carefully. This is my treasure. Usually, people can't see it even if they want to," Yu Fei said proudly. He then took out a scroll and slowly opened it. The map was huge. At first glance, it didn't seem as detailed as the one in Lin Xian's hand. However, if one looked carefully, they would find that there were many markings on it. For example, Lin Xian found that the entire Scarlet Plains was divided into many regions of different sizes. Each region was marked with a different pattern. Other than that, there were also some places with exclamation marks. "These are?" Lin Xian asked curiously. "This is the distribution of the major forces in the blood field. The areas you see are the current division of the blood field," Yu Fei said. "Do you see that? We're standing in the territory of the Green-Red Society." "Azure Red Society?" "Yes, Broken Mountain City, Flying Tiger City, and 6 other cities all belong to the Green-Red Society." "Is the Qihong Society very powerful?" "You can say that he's the overlord of this region, but he's nothing compared to the entire Blood Realm." Indeed, Lin Xian realized that the Green-Red Society's sphere of influence was only the size of a fingernail on the entire map. Compared to those palm-sized and larger forces, it was nothing at all. Doesn't Broken Mountain City belong to the Green Wolf Gang? How did it become the Azure Red Society's territory? The Green Wolf Gang is just a branch of the Green Red Society, and it's the weakest of the 6 branches. You've just arrived, so it's normal that you don't know about this. You'll probably understand after a while, Yufei said. Of course, the premise is that you can survive in the Blood Realm. The Green Wolf Gang, the Green Red Society. Lin Xian looked at the map in his hand with a touch of coldness in his eyes. He didn't know if the other party had deliberately given him such a useless map, but he would let it go this time. If he found out that the Green Wolf Gang had other actions in the dark, he would never forgive them. Although the boss of the Green Red Society dominates here, he's nothing in the entire Blood Realm. He's not even qualified to enter the Blood Supreme list. Yufei snorted softly. Blood Supreme list, what's that? The Blood Supreme list is a ranking of the experts in the Blood Realm. Anyone who can be on the list is at least a venerable. Moreover, the venerables on the list have been through hundreds of battles and rose in the cruelest environment. Their strength is much stronger than the venerables of the same level in other regions. The competition on the Blood Supreme list is very fierce. There will be new changes on the list every few years. It can be said that the speed of change is very fast. Lin Xian was moved after hearing this. It was very difficult to advance to the Venerable Realm, but the Blood Supreme list was updated once every 2 or 3 years. One could imagine how fierce the competition was. Who are the people at the top of the list? Can you tell me in detail? Lin Xian asked. He was very curious about the Blood Supreme list. Well, Yufei deliberately dragged his words and looked at Lin Xian with a smile. Plop! Lin Xian threw out a small box of medium spiritual stones. Yufei was pleasantly surprised. He quickly put away the box of medium spiritual stones, then cleared his throat and said, Brother, you're straightforward. The top 2 experts are too mysterious. Very few people know them. They only know that they come from the 2 biggest forces. But the third one is very famous. Yufei was a little excited when he mentioned the third one. His name is Duan Tao. His strength has reached the peak of the Venerable Realm. It can be said that he's very terrifying. Moreover, his identity is very special. He is the 7th son of the Deputy Palace Master of the Palace of Ares. Peak Venerable Realm, from the Palace of Ares. Lin Xian was shocked. He did not expect the third person on the Blood Supreme list to be so powerful. He had reached the peak of the Venerable Realm. Moreover, what shocked him even more was that Duan Tao was from the Palace of Ares and had an extraordinary status. Duan Tao is very powerful. He is not even 100 years old, but his strength is incredible. In the Blood Realm, except for the top 2 experts, almost no one is his match. So, many people call him Martial Honored. Martial Honored! Lin Xian was shocked. Martial Honored. Martial Honored. This title has extraordinary meaning. However, the top 2 experts did not object. In addition to the influence of the Palace of Ares, Duan Tao's strength was also extremely powerful. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to win the title of Martial Honored. Duan Tao is very low-key. It seems that he only develops in the Blood Realm. However, his son is even more famous. Even outside the Blood Realm, there is no one who does not know him. Yufei said. Duan Lingfeng, Prince Lingfeng. You should know him, right? Prince Lingfeng? Lin Xian was stunned. Is he very famous? Pfft. Yufei almost vomited blood. Then, he said in exasperation, Brother, are you really from the Tianwu continent? You haven't even heard of Prince Lingfeng's name? Well, I grew up in the mountains, so I don't know much about the outside world. Lin Xian shrugged. So you're a barbarian. Yufei curled his lips. Kid, listen carefully. The Tianwu continent has the 4 great princes. They are very talented and powerful. They can suppress people of the same level. Moreover, the 4 of them are from the House of Kings. They have powerful backgrounds and gathered a group of strong supporters. They form a very powerful force. The people of the continent call them the 4 great princes of the Tianwu continent. Among them, Prince Ling Feng is the most ruthless. Okay, let's not talk about it. These things are too far away for you. Just treat it as a legend. You will probably never see the 4 great princes in your life. Yu Fei curled his lips. Then, he pulled out a demon beast's corpse from the ruins. He said in annoyance, Damn it, we actually encountered a blood storm. How do I explain this when I go back? Damn it, this bloody dragon horse is very expensive. The old man will definitely be furious this time. It's over. Yu Fei looked at the demon beast's corpse on the ground. His face was bitter. Seeing this, Lin Xian smiled. Brother, do you lack spiritual stones? Chapter 694. Brother, are you short of spirit stones? Lin Xian asked with a smile. Yu Fei's face was filled with displeasure, as he muttered in his heart. Aren't you talking nonsense? Suddenly, he froze as he remembered that Lin Xian had casually tossed a box of mid-level spirit stones to him. Could this guy be a rich second-generation heir? Yu Fei stared at Lin Xian as countless thoughts ran through his mind. Then, he laughed dryly and said, Brother, can you lend me some spirit stones? Don't worry, Yu Fei, will definitely return them. Lin Xian shook his head and smiled. I won't lend you spirit stones, but you can earn them yourself. Seeing Lin Xian shake his head, Yu Fei's face was filled with displeasure. He thought to himself, Why did you ask if I didn't lend you spirit stones? However, his next words surprised him. How do I earn them? Yu Fei asked curiously. You seem to be very familiar with the situation in the Blood Realm. Are you interested in being my guide? Lin Xian said. Don't worry, I will definitely pay you well. The situation in the Blood Realm was more complicated than he had imagined, so he hoped to find a smart guide. Yu Fei was such a weak martial artist, yet he was able to survive the Red Storm. This was enough to prove his terrifying experience and survival skills. Pay? Yu Fei's eyes darted around. How much can you pay? The price of 2 crimson dragon horses. Lin Xian held out 2 fingers. Really? Yu Fei sucked in a breath of cold air. One had to know that 1 blood dragon horse was worth 30,000 mid-grade spirit stones. 2 of them would be 60,000 mid-grade spirit stones. He couldn't believe it because he had spent a lot of effort to gather enough money to buy this horse. Now, he could earn 60,000 mid-grade spirit stones just by leading the way. This was definitely a good thing that had fallen into his lap. Wait a minute. Yu Fei suddenly became alert. Where are you going? Let's make it clear first. If you want to go to some forbidden place, I won't lead the way. Don't worry, it's not a forbidden place. I'm going to Senmu College. Senmu College. Yu Fei breathed a sigh of relief. He sized up Lin Xian again and shook his head slightly. Senmu College only recruited geniuses and elite fighters. Not just anyone could get in. He didn't sense any terrifying aura from Lin Xian, so he didn't think that Lin Xian could get into Senmu College. However, none of this had anything to do with him. All he had to do was bring her to Senmu College. All right, I promise you, Yu Fei said. But you have to accompany me to Feihu's city first. I have to hand over the goods before I can take you to Senmu College. No problem. Lin Xian agreed quickly. He knew from the map that Feihu's city was the only way to Senmu College. Wait a minute, I have to bring the bloody dragon horse with me. Yu Fei pulled the horse's leg on the ground. No problem. Lin Xian patted the demon beast's pouch and let Xiao Jin out. Croak. Xiao Jin had been cultivating in the demon beast's pouch for the past few days. Now that it was let out, it cried out excitedly. Damn, what a huge frog! Yu Fei saw a huge shadow next to him, and couldn't help but look back. No wonder he's from a rich family. He has such a powerful demon beast. It's much better than the bloody dragon horse. Yu Fei was extremely envious. Soon he jumped up. Lin Xian patted Xiao Jin's head, and the latter turned into a ray of golden light and jumped out quickly. Feihu City, one of the 6 branches of the Cyan Red Society. Its strength was ranked in the top 3. At this moment, in the huge and magnificent mansion of the city governor, a solemn atmosphere enveloped the area. 2 corpses were laid side by side on the white jade floor. They were covered in blood and beyond recognition, but one could still tell that they were a man and a woman. Above the main hall, a burly man strode over. Every step he took made the ground tremble. This man was the governor of Feihu's city, Tianhu. He looked at Steward Du on the ground with a gloomy face. "Who killed junior brother Du?" Tianhu's voice was like thunder, causing the air to tremble. "Governor Tian, it's this guy." Below him, an old man in green clothes said in a deep voice. Then, he flipped his palm and used his spiritual power to form a scroll in the air. On the scroll was a handsome young man, who looked exactly like Lin Xian. "This little thief killed Steward Du in the Broken Mountain City and then escaped. Our leader has given the order to kill him, but there are still no clues so far." Looking at the scroll in the air, Tianhu's eyes shone with a cold light. "Who is this guy? What's his background? This guy had some friction with Steward Du's sister, so I don't want to listen to these useless reasons," Tianhu suddenly shouted. "Just tell me who he is and what's his background. As for the reason, I don't need to know. No matter what the reason is, as long as he killed my junior brother, I'll make him pay with his blood." The old man in the green wolf gang's eyes flashed. "This young man seems to be a newcomer to the blood realm. We don't know his identity." "A newcomer to the blood realm?" Tianhu closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Pass down my order. From today onwards, strengthen the patrols in the city. Once you find this little thief, report it immediately. At the same time, go to the other nearby cities and offer a high reward to hunt down this little thief. I don't believe that he can escape from my tight encirclement. Junior brother Du, don't worry. I'll avenge you." Tianhu's voice was cold. "All right, you can go back first. Tell Zhao Kun to report to me as soon as there's any news." "Don't worry, City Lord Tian. The Green Wolf Gang will do our best to find him," the old man said. Then, he bowed respectfully and quickly turned to leave. "This Tianhu is just like the rumors. He's vengeful. But this is good. With him around, that little thief won't be able to escape. Humph, no one who dares to provoke the Green Wolf Gang can live." The old man sneered. Then, he turned into a green light and quickly disappeared. The Flying Tiger City was twice the size of Broken Mountain City, and the buildings were more majestic. The tall walls were all made of black stones. The 2 pitch-black doors were 10 feet tall and were very thick. At this moment, they were completely open. On both sides of the door stood 2 rows of guards in black armor. Their bodies were tattooed with white tiger stripes. From afar they looked like they were wearing tiger skin. These were the military guards in the city. Unlike Broken Mountain City, the Flying Tiger City was strictly managed by the military. Moreover, the people in the city were not so extreme. It looked much safer. Lin Xian stood in front of the city gate. He had already put away Xiao Jin. At this moment, he was squinting his eyes and watching. Next to him, Yu Fei also put away the bloody dragon horse in the storage room. "Brother Xian, the entrance fee to the Flying Tiger City is 3,000 middle spiritual stones. As long as you pay, you don't have to pay anymore," Yu Fei explained. 3,000 middle spiritual stones? Lin Xian nodded. It was indeed much cheaper than Broken Mountain City. Then Yu Fei walked forward and took out the city pass to show it to the guards. Then, he safely entered the city. Lin Xian rolled up his sleeves and slowly walked forward. When the leader of the Flying Tiger Troop saw Lin Xian, he was stunned. In the end, he suppressed the shock in his heart and looked at Lin Xian carefully. After a while, his eyes flashed, and he was even more certain of his thoughts. However, he did not act rashly. Instead, he asked in a deep voice, "Halt. Do you have an entry pass?" "No." Lin Xian shook his head and took out 3,000 middle spiritual stones. "Take it. This is an entry pass. In the future, you can enter the Flying Tiger City with this pass," the leader said. Lin Xian nodded and took the pass. Then, he walked into the Flying Tiger City. Chapter 695. Looking at Lin Xian's back, the captain's eyes turned cold. "Do, report to the city lord that the person on the wanted list has appeared. Everyone else, close the city gates and activate the forbidden space array. We can't let that kid escape." Then, the corners of his mouth turned cold. "There is a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There is no door to hell, so don't blame us since you are courting death." Lin Xian walked into the Flying Tiger City. Looking at the lively scene on the street, his brows slightly wrinkled. His soul force was outstanding, so he could naturally perceive the abnormalities of the Flying Tiger Army. Especially the captain, although he concealed it well, it didn't escape Lin Xian's eyes. From the expressions of those people, Lin Xian saw shock and hidden killing intent. Although he didn't know what was going on, he was still vigilant. Yu Fei, who was in front of him, had a face full of excitement. From time to time, he would introduce the city to Lin Xian. At this time, a noise came from behind. Then, the whole ground trembled slightly. Countless black figures rushed out like a flood, instantly breaking through the crowd. The martial artists on the street were shocked and retreated one after another. That flood was like a fierce beast, very fast. In a flash, Lin Xian was surrounded. F***CK, no way, the Flying Tiger Army! Yu Fei saw these people, his face turned pale with fright. He naturally knew how powerful these people were. These martial artists in black armor were the Flying Tiger Army, and Wu was the city's law enforcement officer. They belonged to the city lord's mansion, so no one dared to oppose them in the city. Usually, the Flying Tiger Army was rarely mobilized. They would only be mobilized for special matters. But today, they had surrounded Lin Xian. "Brothers, are you looking for the wrong person?" Yu Fei said in a trembling voice. "We are two rookies, we can't cause any trouble, let alone alert you brothers. Get lost!" One of the martial artists in black armor kicked Yu Fei away. "This has nothing to do with you, we are looking for him." Immediately, countless gazes were like cold spears as they stared at Lin Xian. Powerful auras gushed out from them. These auras formed a special field. This was the combined might and killing intent of the entire Flying Tiger troop. It was extremely shocking, and the surrounding cultivators retreated in fear. Yu Fei fell to the ground with a face full of pain. He did not know what Lin Xian had done to provoke the Flying Tiger Army. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was very calm. He had a slight smile on his face, as if the invisible and terrifying pressure around him had no effect on him at all. "What an ostentatious display! What's the matter?" Lin Xian asked calmly. "Cut the crap and come with us." The tone of these people was very harsh. Their bodies flickered with black light, and the long sabers in their hands were even brighter. This was not a conversation at all, but an order. "Humph, what if I don't agree?" Hearing the other party's forceful tone, Lin Xian's expression darkened. He was not someone who could be ordered around by just anyone. "Kid, I advise you to be sensible. Otherwise, we will cut off your limbs and drag you to the city lord's mansion like a dog. You don't have a choice. Be obedient and surrender. Perhaps you will suffer less." These people's voices were cold, and their bodies were full of killing intent. Lin Xian frowned slightly, and a sword light flashed in his eyes. These people from the Flying Tiger troop dared to be disrespectful to him. If it was under normal circumstances, he would have killed them instantly. However, this was the Flying Tiger City, and these people were the city lord's subordinates. Moreover, he did not know what had happened, so he did not want to have a conflict with the forces here unless it was absolutely necessary. Seeing that Lin Xian did not move, these people were furious. "Damn kid, you dare to disobey the city lord's order. Believe it or not, I will kill you right now." "Kill me?" Lin Xian snorted coldly, and his face turned cold. He took a step forward and said sternly, "I'm standing right here, try to move." With a step forward, Lin Xian's aura changed drastically. A sharp and powerful aura gushed out, as if a peerless divine sword had been unsheathed. He had already condensed his martial soul, and he even dared to kill a reverend, let alone a few people from the Flying Tiger Troop. This aura was not something these people could contend with. Moreover, he did not make a move because he did not want to cause trouble. Now that the other party was so arrogant, did they really think he was a pushover? This aura was extremely terrifying, like a demonic mountain, pressing down on everyone's hearts, making it difficult for them to breathe. Especially those from the Flying Tiger Troop. When Lin Xian's gaze swept past them, it was as if countless divine swords had pierced through their bodies. It was a kind of trembling that came from the soul. The originally arrogant Flying Tiger Troop was now trembling like little white rabbits. Their bodies were trembling slightly, and they did not dare to look directly at Lin Xian. Lin Xian smiled disdainfully, retracted his aura, and stood with his hands behind his back. After a long time, those from the Flying Tiger Troop came back to their senses. When they thought of their previous performance, they were so angry that their bodies trembled, and their eyes seemed to spit fire. The Vice Domain Chief, in particular, was so angry that his face turned black. He had brought the troops here to show off his power and make the other party obediently give up. However, he did not expect that with so many people, they would be intimidated by the other party's gaze. Moreover, it was in front of so many people. How were they going to survive in the future? Thinking of this, the Vice Domain Chief's face darkened, and his gaze was as cold as a poisonous snake's. He instantly pulled out the long saber at his waist and slashed it at Lin Xian. "Reckless dog, how dare you threaten us? Today, I'll show you how powerful I am!" The blade was sharp, and it was like a silver waterfall dancing in the air. The void split open, and the air was mercilessly torn apart, as if silver divine lightning was shining. The Vice Domain Chief was an ultimate powerhouse. His attack was filled with anger, and he did not hold back at all. This attack was so powerful that the surrounding warriors gasped in shock, especially Yu Fei, who covered his eyes and did not dare to watch. At the same time, his heart was filled with endless sympathy and pity. This was because, in his opinion, Lin Xian would definitely not be able to withstand this attack. Crack! Looking at the terrifying blade, Lin Xian smiled disdainfully, then he struck out with his palm. In an instant, the saber radiance in the air shattered with a loud bang. It could not block the attack at all. Then, the shadow of the palm landed quickly, and a large handprint appeared on the Vice Domain Chief's face. His body was sent flying, and he spun 3 times in the air before landing on the ground. Then, the crisp sound of a slap could be heard in all directions. Hearing that sound, many warriors gasped and touched their cheeks unconsciously. This was because just by looking at the situation, they knew that the slap was extremely painful. You dare to hit me?" The Vice Domain Chief crawled up from the ground with difficulty and stared at Lin Xian. His eyes were filled with viciousness and fear. Half of his face was swollen, and more than half of his teeth were broken. Fresh blood dripped onto his armor, making him look extremely demonic. Even the words he spoke were somewhat unclear. "Why wouldn't I dare? Who do you think you are? How dare you show off in front of me?" Lin Xian snorted coldly. "Boy, you're dead. I want you dead. I'm going to chop off your limbs and feed you." Before he could finish speaking, a crisp sound of a slap was heard. In the next moment, the Vice Domain Chief spun like a top, and the blood from his teeth scattered in the air. This slap directly turned the Vice Domain Chief's head into a pig's head, and all his teeth fell to the ground. Chapter 696. Looking at the Vice Domain Chief who was beaten up, Lin Xian said indifferently, "I'm doing this for your own good. I'm teaching you not to be too arrogant. Not everyone can be offended in this world. Fortunately, I'm good-tempered and didn't stoop to your level. Otherwise, you would have been dead by now." The Vice Domain Chief was on the verge of tears. He even wanted to die. Who was the arrogant one? The surrounding people were even more stunned and horrified. The young man in front of them was definitely a ferocious person. He had subdued the arrogant Vice Domain Chief with a raise of his hand. Other than the governor and the Vice Domain Chief, no one else had this ability. Lin Xian glanced around and looked at the rest of the flying tiger troop. Immediately, they retreated in fear. What a joke. Even the vice domain chief was beaten up. Who would dare to go up? However, Lin Xian said, "Let's go. Take me to the governor's mansion." What? Everyone was stunned and could not believe their ears. You heard me right. I said I'm going to the governor's mansion. Then, Lin Xian turned to Yu Fei and said, "Take a rest first. I'll come and find you when I'm done." Yu Fei nodded mechanically. His eyes were blank. Until now, he still could not accept what was happening in front of his eyes. "Hero, hero, please!" The rest of the flying tiger troop carefully opened the way for fear of offending Lin Xian. How was this capturing a criminal? This was simply a guard opening a path for someone. However, these people were not dissatisfied at all. They only hoped to reach the governor's mansion as soon as possible so that they could complete their mission. Lin Xian naturally had his reasons for going to the Qingdu mansion. He did not know the people from the Flying Tiger Troop at all. There must be a reason why they wanted to kill him. Moreover, not long ago, he found out that the Green Wolf Gang and the Flying Tiger Troop were the two branches of the Green-Red Society. There must be a connection between the two. It seemed that the Flying Tiger Troop was standing up for the Green Wolf Gang this time. Moreover, Lin Xian knew that the governor of the Flying Tiger Troop was a First Heaven Venerable. Although he was powerful, he was confident that he could deal with him. That was why he went to the city lord's mansion without fear. Lin Xian walked at a leisurely pace, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. From time to time, he would look at the surrounding roadside scenery. The Flying Tiger Army stood on both sides of Lin Xian as if they were his most loyal guards. The martial artists in the city were all shocked. They were all trying to guess which great figure actually needed the Flying Tiger Army to open a path for him. If they knew that those people were here to capture Lin Xian, their jaws would definitely drop. Finally, Lin Xian came to a stop in front of a huge mansion. The entire mansion was very majestic, like a small city. The tall walls were incomparably black. The gate was even more magnificent. In front of it were two stone carvings of flying tigers baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The group of people escorted Lin Xian into the city lord's mansion. The guards who were guarding the door were puzzled. Didn't they say that they were going out to capture someone? Why were they escorting such a big shot back and accompanying him so carefully? Moreover, why was there a pig head in the team? No, that outfit. What? It was a vice domain chief. Everyone was shocked. They looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. Lin Xian did not go to the main hall. Instead, he was brought to a landscape garden. There were pavilions, terraces, and pavilions in picturesque disorder. There were rockeries and flying rocks. At this moment, the city lord and many of his subordinates were enjoying the dance and drinking when a guard suddenly reported. When he learned that the person on the wanted poster had been captured, his eyes instantly shot out a terrifying light. "Bring that brat here!" Soon, Lin Xian strode over. Behind him was a group of Flying Tiger Army soldiers. Lin Xian swaggered around with a calm demeanor, as if he was the master of this place. When he walked to the front, Lin Xian saw the fine wine and delicacies nearby. He laughed loudly and sat down to drink to his heart's content. Many martial artists in the courtyard had uncertain expressions. Especially City Lord Tian, who, his face was terrifyingly gloomy. This guy in front of them was too arrogant. He actually ignored all of them and ate and drank to his heart's content. Did he not know that he was a prisoner? "How dare you! How arrogant! Why aren't you kneeling when you see the city lord?" A young man shouted coldly. He was also wearing light armor, and his expression was cold. This young man was the son of the Flying Tiger Army's domain chief. When he saw Lin Xian's arrogant attitude, he was instantly enraged. Lin Xian held the wine cup in his left hand and laughed loudly. "You're the bold one. How dare you speak like that? Why aren't you slapping yourself?" His voice was filled with arrogance. "You're courting death." The young man was furious. He immediately pulled out a sharp long sword and stabbed out quickly. No one stopped him. Everyone looked at this scene with gloomy expressions. This young man looked young, but his cultivation was at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. His sword's momentum was shocking. The sword radiance was like a dazzling divine light that swept through the void. Red flames were attached to the sword aura. They danced, accompanied by a blazing aura. It was as if a ferocious fire dragon was spewing out. In an instant, the terrifying sword radiance enveloped Lin Xian. Die, brat! The young man's face was ferocious like a demon. However, in the next moment, a vigorous hand reached out and grabbed the head of the fire dragon. His 5 fingers bent and pierced through the head. With a mournful cry, the fire dragon disappeared, turning into a rain of fire that fell to the ground. Lin Xian snorted disdainfully. His gaze was like a sword that pierced forward. The young man's face turned pale. He took 3 steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. You don't know how to use a sword, and you don't deserve to use a sword, Lin Xian said mercilessly. The young man clutched his chest. His eyes were spitting fire. He wanted to burn Lin Xian to death. He was considered an elite of the younger generation in the Flying Tiger City. His status was respected, and no one dared to speak to him like that. But now, an unknown brat dared to taunt him in public. This put him on the spot. His heart was burning with anger. He wanted to pounce forward and cut Lin Xian down. However, the terrifying scene from before made him fearful. He didn't dare to move recklessly. The others were even more shocked. This young man defeated the enemy in one move. No wonder he was able to kill Steward Du. Humph, brat, you're very arrogant. How dare you behave so atrociously in my territory? Aren't you afraid of death? Tian, whose voice was cold and murderous. I'm just SOSO. I'm ranked 3rd in the Blood Realm. Lin Xian smiled. Tell me, why are you looking for me? Don't tell me you just want to enjoy my performance? Humph. Tian, who sneered. Brat, did you kill my junior brother? Your junior brother? Which one is your junior brother? Lin Xian snorted. I've killed too many people. I can't remember. Cut the crap. Did you kill Steward Du of the Green Wolf Gang? A burly man asked coldly. He was the lieutenant of the Flying Tiger Corps. He looked at Lin Xian with murderous intent. Steward Du? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the Green Wolf Gang was behind this. Murderous intent rose in his heart. He had warned them not to provoke him, but they didn't listen and moved out of Flying Tiger City. Did they think he was so easy to bully? Since they didn't keep their promise, there was no need for them to exist. Lin Xian decided that after this matter in Flying Tiger City was over, he would destroy the Green Wolf Gang. I think you're mistaken. I didn't kill Steward Du, it was the leader of the Green Dragon Gang. You're full of nonsense. You're still trying to quibble? Steward Du is the right-hand man of the Green Wolf Gang. Why would the leader of the Green Dragon Gang hurt him? The lieutenant sneered. What a joke. I haven't even finished speaking and you're already jumping out. Are you trying to show off your superior intelligence? Lin Xian sneered. In my opinion, you're just an idiot. Then he said coldly, the leader of the Green Wolf Gang is obviously afraid of me. That's why he killed Steward Du, that's how it is. I don't expect you to believe me. Alright, didn't you ask me to come here to kill me? Hurry up and do it. I'm in a hurry. His tone was impatient, as if he didn't care about them at all. Chapter 697. Lin Xian's words were out of everyone's expectations. He was too arrogant, and did not put them in his eyes at all. Tian, whose face was even more gloomy. As the city lord, no one had ever dared to be impudent in front of him. Little thief, do you know who you're talking to? Lieutenant Wan Yu shouted coldly. Brat, no one has ever dared to talk to me like that. Those who have been arrogant in front of me are all dead. Tian, whose voice was cold. You have guts, but you have no brains. All right, stop putting on airs as the city lord. Lin Xian laughed disdainfully. If I don't say or do anything, will you let me go? We're going to fight anyway, why should I give you face? Also, you don't have the right to be arrogant in front of me. Lin Xian's voice echoed, completely shocking everyone. Heavens, this guy was too crazy. He actually dared to mock the city lord without any scruples. Did he not know that the entire Flying Tiger City was under their control? He even said that this guy knew that he was going to die, so he wanted to go crazy before he died. Of course, everyone felt that the last possibility was very likely. You're courting death. Today, I'll let you know the consequences of behaving atrociously in the city lord's mansion. Lieutenant Wan Yu shouted angrily. He pulled out the long saber at his waist, held it with both hands, and slashed down. He had wanted to make a move for a long time. This brat in front of him was too arrogant. First, he injured the vice lieutenant of the Flying Tiger Army, then he injured his son. Now, he did not put him and the city lord in his eyes at all. Everything made Wan Yu go crazy, so he did not hesitate and slashed down with his saber. Only by cutting this hateful little thief in half could he vent the hatred in his heart. The saber flashed like a silver river dancing in the air. The void trembled, and a fierce and terrifying aura swept out like a tsunami. As the saber slashed down, the surrounding rockery shattered, and the waterfall flew backward. The momentum was terrifying. Lin Xian raised his head and punched out. The golden fist enlarged in the air like a small mountain. Golden arcs of lightning flashed around it, and thunder rumbled in the air. Terrifying lightning energy permeated the air, turning everything in the surroundings into ashes. The surrounding warriors retreated in fear, distancing themselves from the two of them and retreating to a safe place. At the same time, they were extremely shocked. This young man was really crazy, acting without any scruples. He actually dared to make a move in the city lord's mansion. Moreover, the terrifying power of lightning was truly terrifying. Wherever the golden fist passed, the void was almost unable to withstand it. Boom! The resplendent saber light collided with the golden fist, creating an earth-shattering sound. Then, the blade light trembled and shattered like glass, dissipating in the air. At the same time, Wan Yu's face turned pale as he retreated. Lin Xian's expression was calm. His fist turned into a palm and suddenly slammed down. The mountain-like golden fist in the void transformed into a golden palm that covered the sky. Wherever it passed, thunder and lightning would descend. Terrifying energy surged and created a bottomless black hole in the ground. The entire Hill Spring residences was completely destroyed. Everyone's expression changed. This palm was too terrifying. It was hard for them to imagine that this was an attack from a young man. This power definitely surpassed that of an ultimate warrior. Could this young man be a half-step honorable? Everyone's hearts raced, and their expressions changed drastically. A half-step honorable at such a young age was definitely a prodigy. Such geniuses were usually supported by powerful forces. Some of them were not forces that Flying Tiger City could contend against. Wan Yu's expression was even more horrified. He did not expect his opponent to be so powerful that he could shatter his attack with a single punch. Looking at the rapidly descending golden palm, he let out a low growl and quickly unleashed the power of his martial soul prototype. An extremely powerful force surged out and filled the surroundings. At this moment, Wan Yu's body was shining brightly. Terrifying energy filled his body, and he could even tear the void apart with a single move. He waved his palms and struck out an energy palm shadow. It swept the sky and resisted the golden palm above. However, the golden palm in the sky was too terrifying. It directly shattered the palm shadow that filled the sky and quickly enveloped Wan Yu. Boom! Wan Yu was sent flying. He kept retreating, and every step he took left a terrifying crack in the ground. The ground of the entire Feng Shui residences was torn apart as if an earthquake had occurred. Wan Yu's hair was disheveled, and his chest was heaving up and down. The corner of his mouth was stained with blood. This palm had seriously injured him. On the opposite side, Lin Xian looked calm. He did not even move his feet. You have the nerve to use your saber with such little strength? You said you would kill me. Can you do it? Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. Wan Yu was about to go crazy. He was like a wild beast. He roared again and again. His terrifying aura was like a burning flame. The spiritual chi in the sky gathered and formed an energy giant that was dozens of feet tall. Its hands were on the ground as it roared to the sky. The sound was like a wave that slapped in all directions, shattering the clouds in the sky. The giant glared at Lin Xian and then spat out an energy beam. Air waves rolled, and the void shattered. The terrifying energy beam was like a demon's spear that quickly rushed toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian sneered with disdain in his eyes. Then, he took a step forward and the spiritual chi in his body condensed into a terrifying sword chi that quickly slashed forward. The sword chi was dazzling and directly bombarded the energy beam, shattering it. Then, the terrifying sword chi slashed the energy giant's body and cut it in half. In the end, the dazzling sword chi enveloped Wang Yu. Everything happened too quickly. Everyone only saw Lin Xian take a step forward, and then a huge dazzling sword chi appeared in the sky. Wherever it passed, everything was annihilated. Nothing could stop it for even a moment. When the sword chi disappeared, everyone was shocked and gasped. That was because Wang Yu's body was cut in half and fell to the ground. His blood and organs were splattered all over the ground. It was a hideous sight. It was too terrifying. The domain chief of Flying Tiger City, a half-step venerable one, was killed with a single slash. Moreover, he could not fight back at all. His strength was heaven-defying, and the other party was such a young man. Countless people trembled and did not dare to look at Lin Xian directly. Tian Hu's face was terrifyingly gloomy when he saw this. He did not make a move in the previous battle because he thought that Wang Yu, as a half-step venerable one, had an absolute advantage to kill the thief in front of him. However, Lin Xian's strength was beyond his expectations. Wang Yu was not strong enough, and the last slash was too fast. He did not even have the chance to save him. Looking at the terrified expressions of the Flying Tiger City soldiers, Tian Hu's face became ferocious, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He knew that he had to kill Lin Xian to settle today's matter. "Brat, you dared to kill my people! No one can save you today!" Tian Hu released a terrifying aura. "I'm going to cut off your head and hang it on Flying Tiger City. I'm going to let everyone know the consequences of offending Flying Tiger City." As Tian Hu walked over step by step, his aura became more and more powerful. The pressure of a venerable one was completely released, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. He was not careless at all. Judging from the battle just now, Lin Xian could kill a half-step venerable one with a single slash, so his strength must have reached the venerable one realm. Therefore, he did not dare to be careless when facing Lin Xian. Chapter 698. Facing Lin Xian, Tian Hu did not dare to be careless. When the surrounding martial artists saw Tian Hu make a move, they immediately became excited because they knew that Tian Hu was a true venerable. He was extremely powerful and could be said to be the #1 expert in Flying Tiger City. Lin Xian's eyes lit up and his expression was also extremely solemn. No matter what, the other party was a true venerable, far from what Wang Yu and the others could compare to. Therefore, Lin Xian did not underestimate this battle. A golden fist condensed, and Lin Xian attacked first, punching out. Golden light flickered like a sun, rampaging through the void. Everyone was shocked. They did not expect that Lin Xian would dare to take the initiative to attack in the face of a powerful venerable. Tian Hu laughed sinisterly and roared, immediately releasing his martial soul. His martial soul was a fierce tiger, and it was condensing behind him at this moment, accompanied by a monstrous and terrifying power. The tiger martial soul was very intelligent. It roared towards the sky and the sound shook the sky. A strange sound wave blasted out with Tian Hu's fist, forming a spiral attack in the air. The air was ruthlessly torn apart. The fist wind was vast and mighty, and a gale swept out. It was like a fierce tiger attacking, swift and fierce to the extreme. The two fists collided with an earth-shaking sound, and the surrounding ground cracked and spread into the distance. Under one blow, they were evenly matched. The two fists were in a stalemate in the air, devouring each other. Whoosh! The surrounding martial artists were shocked. They did not expect Lin Xian to be able to contend with the city lord. This scene made them feel fear in their hearts. Tian Hu was also shocked. His attack was actually blocked, which was completely beyond his expectations. One had to know that he had used the power of his martial soul in this punch. Thinking of this, his face darkened. He had to use his full strength, he could not hold back anymore. Tian Hu gritted his teeth, his eyes burning with anger. Then, he took a step forward and merged with the tiger martial soul behind him. His originally tall and strong body grew another 3 feet, like a small giant, mighty and extraordinary. His body was covered with black and white tiger stripes, flickering with light. His limbs became thick and his palms were sharp like tiger claws, flickering with cold light and incomparably sharp. His entire person seemed to have turned into a fierce tiger murderer, emitting an aura that made people's hearts tremble. Lin Xian focused his gaze. He could naturally feel the terror of the other party. Taking a deep breath, he formed a seal with his right hand, and the spiritual energy in his body surged. Lin Xian had no intention of delaying either. He wanted to go all out. "Die, you little thief!" Tian Hu roared as he punched out with both fists. The wind from his fists was vast and mighty, forming a ferocious tiger that pounced forward. The ferocious black tiger filled up the entire space. With a swipe of its claws, it tore the void apart. "Humph! Vermilion bird seal!" Lin Xian snorted coldly. He formed a seal with his right hand and madly pressed it forward. Ming! A loud and clear voice rang out, and a fiery red figure flew out from the palm print, instantly filling the entire sky. That was a divine bird. Its entire body was covered in fiery red feathers. It was as if divine flames were jumping about, and a terrifying heat wave engulfed the entire room. "What kind of bird is this? How can it be so terrifying? Could it be the divine vermilion bird?" Someone said in a trembling voice, his eyes filled with fear. The vermilion bird soared into the sky like a sun, illuminating the 4 rooms. It let out a cry, flapped its wings, and rushed down. With raging flames, he charged towards the black tiger. Boom! The 2 beasts collided, and energy spread out like a tide. The black tiger roared, its roar shaking the sky. However, the vermilion bird was too powerful. Its body was surrounded by flames, burning everything. The vermilion bird seal had an extraordinary origin. Now that Lin Xian used the great dragon sword soul, it was incomparably powerful. In just a moment, the vermilion bird tore apart the black tiger phantom. Its body trembled, and it pounced towards Tian Hu. Whoosh! Tian Hu's expression changed, and he moved sideways. He did not dare to face the terrifying vermilion bird head-on. However, in the next moment, his expression changed again because Lin Xian appeared in front of him like a ghost. Shocked, Tian Hu kept changing his position, but he still underestimated Lin Xian. Lin Xian had an Earth-class movement technique, and his speed was incomparably terrifying. Now, he was following Tian Hu closely, and the vermilion bird seal in his hand fell crazily. Boom! Another vermilion bird flew out and pounced on Tian Hu. Black tiger protection! Tian Hu could not dodge, so he could only take it head-on. Black and white tiger stripes flickered on his body, and a black tiger phantom surrounded him, forming a solid defense. The vermilion bird phantom collided, emitting a sky-shaking sound, and the terrifying power directly pushed Tian Hu back. Whoosh! Lin Xian followed like a shadow, arriving behind Tian Hu in an instant, and the vermilion bird seal struck out again. Originally, Tian Hu was forced back, and his heart was extremely sullen. However, before he could react, he suffered another blow. This time, his black tiger protection was directly shattered. The terrifying power slammed into his body, causing him to vomit blood. Tian Hu was furious. He roared towards the sky, and the terrifying sound resounded throughout the 4 houses. However, he still could not escape the fate of being beaten. Another blow directly slammed him to the ground, smashing a bottomless black hole in the ground. The surrounding martial artists were stunned. Their city lord was actually being chased and beaten. This scene made them feel like they were dreaming. Lin Xian used the great dragon sword soul as the foundation and struck out the vermilion bird seal. Every strike could split mountains and split rivers. Even respected could not withstand it. 5 strikes, a total of 5 vermilion bird seals, all landed on Tian Hu's body. When the 6th strike landed, Tian Hu's arms were broken, and his bones exploded. His body went limp and fell to the ground. Everyone was terrified because they found that all the bones in Tian Hu's body were broken, and his eyes were dim. From the looks of it, he was not going to survive. Lin Xian retracted his palm and stood in the air. He knew that the battle was over because no one could withstand 6 strikes of the vermilion bird seal. Then, he looked down and pointed a finger. Tian Hu fell to the ground, his body trembling, and his heart was filled with fear. He never thought that he would be completely defeated in the hands of a youth. Moreover, it was a crushing defeat. He was unwilling, he roared, and he struggled. However, in the next moment, a sword light pierced through him. Plop! Tian Hu's body completely stopped moving. The surrounding martial artists were stunned, and then they screamed in horror. Their city lord was actually killed. To them, this was even more terrifying than the sky collapsing. Countless people were terrified and wanted to escape. However, Lin Xian coldly snorted, immediately suppressing everyone. Seeing Lin Xian descend from the air, everyone trembled. However, Lin Xian did not pay attention to those martial artists. He only chopped off Tian Hu's head, then put it away and disappeared into the air. After a long time, the people of the city lord's mansion heaved a sigh of relief and then sat on the ground. This terrifying scene shocked their hearts, and they would probably never forget it for the rest of their lives. It's over, the sky has changed. Countless people trembled. They knew that Flying Tiger City must have fallen into a riot. After a long time, a few half-step venerable realm martial artists recovered from the horror. They whispered to each other and decided to ask the Azure Red Society for help. The city lord was dead. This kind of thing was too big, and they could not control it at all. They could only report it. Moreover, Tian Hu was not only the city lord of Flying Tiger City, but also the branch leader of the Azure Red Society. Chapter 699. Tian Hu's death caused a huge commotion. The powerhouses of Soaring Tiger City discussed and quickly asked for help from the Azure Red Society. However, Lin Xian didn't know any of this. He was currently rushing to Broken Mountain City. Lin Xian had let the Azure Wolf gang off because they were obedient. However, he didn't expect them to do something in secret. Lin Xian naturally wouldn't let them off this time. His body transformed into a ray of sword light and flew quickly on the great blood plains. Broken Mountain City. The old man returned after sending the corpses of Steward Du and Steward Du to Soaring Tiger City. He naturally went back to report to Zhao Kun. In the hall, Zhao Kun laughed with satisfaction when he heard the news. "Haha, well done! With Tian Hu's help, that thief will definitely not be able to escape. Gang leader then." The old man rubbed his hands and seemed to want to say something but hesitated. "Oh, I almost forgot." Zhao Kun immediately smiled when he saw the old man's expression. "From today onward, you'll be the steward of the Azure Wolf gang. Stewardly, you must work hard in the future." "Yes, gang leader." The old man was excited. "I'll definitely work for the Azure Wolf gang wholeheartedly." "Good! Good! Good!" Both of them laughed loudly and were very satisfied in their hearts. However, at this moment, the roof above the hall suddenly broke open, and countless tiles turned into ashes. Swoosh! A black shadow shot in quickly like a black bolt of lightning. "What's that?" Zhao Kun and Steward Du were shocked and looked up. Especially Zhao Kun, he was extremely furious. Someone actually dared to behave atrociously in his territory. They must be tired of living. However, he was stunned in the next moment, because the black shadow fell to the ground and rolled a few times before it stabilized itself. Zhao Kun also saw the black thing clearly. It was actually a head. It was covered in blood, and its eyes were filled with terror and despair. It was Tian Hu's head. Seeing this, Zhao Kun and Manager Li both jumped up in shock. Both of them were terrified and in disbelief. Tian Hu was the city governor of Soaring Tiger City and a venerable realm powerhouse. In Flying Tiger City, no one could compete with him. Even the experts who passed by would not dare to offend Tian Hu because they were afraid of the Cyan Red Society. However, such a valiant character had actually been beheaded and even brought here. Why was Tian Hu's head here? Zhao Kun was terrified, but he was also deeply puzzled. Could it be? When he saw Manager Li, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He had just sent someone to contact Tian Hu, and the latter had died. Moreover, his head had been brought here. He would never believe that this had nothing to do with him. Gang leader, this has nothing to do with me, Manager Li said with a trembling voice. Could it be that brat? Manager Li exclaimed. Could it be that he's here for revenge? The more they thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Trembling, they raised their heads to look. Above them, a figure was walking in the air. Around him were streaks of sword chi, as if a sword god had descended. It's him, it's really him. Zhao Kun looked at the descending figure and trembled uncontrollably. Hero, this has nothing to do with me, Manager Li screamed. Lin Xian's expression was cold as he slowly descended into the main hall. He looked at the two people below, his eyes filled with murderous intent. I said that if you were obedient, I would let you go. However, your actions have disappointed me. Lin Xian shook his head. Hero, we were wrong. Please give me another chance. Zhao Kun was on the verge of tears. There was no other way. Even the powerful Tian Hu had been killed, let alone him. Now he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Why did he think he was smart enough to send Manager Du's body away? If he had held back at that time, this would not have happened. Forgive you? Lin Xian sneered. Stop dreaming. I'm here today to deal with you. The Green Wolf Gang has no need to exist. What? Zhao Kun's body trembled. Lin Xian's words were tantamount to announcing his death sentence. He breathed heavily, and a hint of madness appeared in his eyes. Then, he grabbed the old man next to him. Manager Li, it's time for you to contribute to the gang. After saying that, he waved his arm and threw the old man toward Lin Xian. At the same time, he used his speed and ran outside. Men, come quickly! Zhao Kun roared like a madman. He knew that no one in Broken Mountain City was a match for Lin Xian. He only did that to buy some time for his subordinates. Humph! Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. He smashed the old man flying toward him with a punch, then pointed his finger. Whoosh! The light from his finger shone like a small sword. It streaked across the void and stabbed Zhao Kun. Come! Zhao Kun had just run into the main hall when his body froze. He slowly lowered his head and realized that his heart was transparent. Boom! His body fell to the ground, and he was deader than dead. Ah! Gang leader! The gang members who came from all directions screamed when they saw this scene. At this moment, Lin Xian slowly walked out in a black robe. He exuded a terrifying aura. Devil! Devil! The surrounding martial artists saw this and fled frantically. Lin Xian flew into the sky and stood in the void. Then, he slammed his palm down. Boom! A golden palm condensed and fell rapidly like a mountain. Following it were countless bolts of lightning. In an instant, the main hall of the Green Wolf Gang was reduced to dust. A terrifying handprint appeared on the ground. Countless bolts of golden lightning struck in all directions. It was a terrifying sight. The headquarters of the Green Wolf Gang was reduced to ashes. After doing all this, Lin Xian turned and left. Not long after, a martial artist in a green robe appeared in the void. There was a red flower petal drawn on his chest. He looked at the destroyed main hall below with a cold glint in his eyes. I'm a step too late, the mysterious man said softly. Then, he snorted coldly, and a powerful murderous aura flashed across his body. How dare you offend the Green-Red Gang? Even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, I'll kill you! The middle-aged martial artist in a green robe transformed into a fighter and grabbed at the void. Then, his eyes flickered with a hint of ferocity. Kid, you can't run away! Whoosh! He turned into a ray of green light and disappeared. In the Flying Tiger City, there was also a martial artist in a green robe. This martial artist was slightly older, but he had the same arrogance as the previous one. It seemed that he was also a member of the Green-Red Gang. The old man in a green robe sat in the middle of the main hall. His face was a little gloomy, causing the entire main hall to be filled with an oppressive feeling. Send out everyone. We must find that kid! Reporting to the Red Flower Emissary. That kid has an accomplice who has been captured by us. As long as we spread the news, we will definitely be able to lure him here. Very good. The old man nodded in satisfaction. Then, he said eerily, It seems that we have been too kind recently. Some people have already forgotten about the Green-Red Gang. How dare he kill a member of the Green-Red Gang? I will let him know how foolish his actions are. The old man's voice was low. A red flower petal appeared behind him, shining with a demonic red light. In the end, the entire main hall was filled with red petals. Chapter 700. After Lin Xian destroyed the Green Wolf Gang, he flew back to Flying Tiger City. This time, he was going to bring Yufei to Senma College. However, as soon as he returned to Flying Tiger City, he learned that Yufei had been captured. This caused his little face to turn cold and gloomy. He had just killed the mayor of Flying Tiger City and thought that it would be enough to intimidate everyone. He did not expect that someone would dare to capture Yufei. This was a blatant provocation. Killing intent appeared in Lin Xian's eyes. He wondered if he had been too merciful. He had only killed the mayor and not the others. Humph! With a cold snort, Lin Xian flew toward the mayor's mansion. Soon, he arrived above the mayor's mansion. However, his brows furrowed because he sensed a powerful aura below. A venerable? Who is it? Lin Xian was surprised. He did not expect another venerable to appear not long after Tianhu's death. This aura seemed to be even more powerful than Tianhu's. No wonder he dared to capture Yufei. It turned out that he had a new backer. Below, the old man in the green robe sat in the main hall with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. The light in his eyes was like lightning, piercing through the void. Countless blood-colored petals danced in the hall. You walked right into my trap? How arrogant! The old man in the green robe sneered. Then, he waved his hand. The petals in the sky stopped, and quickly flew upward. Whoosh! 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 Countless red lights flashed. Each petal was like the sharpest hidden weapon, turning into a line of blood in the air. In an instant, all the petals rushed toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian wanted to go down, but in the next moment, countless red lights flew out and pierced through the hall, stabbing toward him. The void trembled as if there were thousands of swords piercing into it. A terrifying aura sealed the entire sky. Danger! Lin Xian was shocked. Naturally, he could sense how terrifying this power was. His body flashed, and he dodged swiftly like a flickering shadow. Countless afterimages appeared. Lin Xian's speed was extremely fast. At the same time, he unleashed the vermilion bird seal, forming a burning vermilion bird that charged forward. The boundless sea of flames spread out, and the blazing energy interweaved to form a large net of flames, enveloping everything in front of it. Boom! Puff! When the two collided, a shockwave of energy erupted. The vast energy was like a real ocean wave, rampaging through the void, emitting a rumbling sound as it spread out in all directions. Sword radiance flickered in Lin Xian's eyes as the red lotus armor materialized on his body. He then drew his wind shadow sword and slashed out a sword radiance. It was as if a bolt of lightning had descended from the sky. The sword radiance was dazzling and dazzling. It split apart the red petals that filled the sky and tore open a vacuum. At the same time, his figure flashed as he dashed downwards. Boom! In the next moment, Lin Xian arrived at the main hall. He circulated his soul power and searched for Yufei's location. Soon he had a clue. He released the Crimson Dragon and the Snow-White Monkey to secretly rescue Yufei. Meanwhile, he stared at the green-robed elder below. You two, hurry up! Lin Xian sent a telepathic message with a solemn expression. That was because he sensed a dangerous aura from the elder below. Second heaven of the honorable realm! Lin Xian took a deep breath. He did not expect a second heaven of the honorable realm to descend. Now that he had condensed his martial soul, his strength was equivalent to a first heaven of the honorable realm. In addition, his great dragon sword soul was an offensive saint technique, which gave him the strength to kill a first heaven of the honorable realm. However, it was still a little difficult for him to encounter a second heaven of the honorable realm. That was because every advancement in the honorable realm was extremely difficult, and every time he advanced, his strength would change tremendously. There were 9 heavens of the honorable realm, and each heavens was vastly different. A second heaven of the honorable realm could easily kill a first heaven of the honorable realm. However, Lin Xian had a saint artifact like the great dragon sword soul after all. If he went all out, he might be able to fight a little. Thinking of this, Lin Xian decided to go all out. Below, the green-robed elder was slightly dazed when he saw Lin Xian. Although he knew that the person who killed Tianhu was a young man, he did not expect him to be so young. Moreover, what shocked him even more was that he sensed that Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. This made him extremely suspicious, and he even thought that Lin Xian was hiding his cultivation. However, he checked again and found that Lin Xian was indeed at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm, but he could sense the power of his martial soul. Humph, he's just a fake honorable realm who has condensed his martial soul. I really don't know what Tianhu is doing to die at the hands of such a person. Kid, I don't know what despicable means you used to kill Tianhu, but since you've killed him, you must be punished. The green-robed elder's voice was cold. How dare you kill the people of the Azure Red Society? I'll let you know what regret is. At the end of his sentence, countless red petals appeared around the elder and spun rapidly around him. It was dazzling and dazzling. The Azure Red Society! Lin Xian's pupils constricted. The people of the Azure Red Society had arrived. He had heard about the Azure Red Society before. It was a huge force that was even more powerful than the Flying Tiger City. One had to know that the Flying Tiger City and the Green Wolf Gang were only branches of the Azure Red Society. One could imagine how terrifying the other party was. Lin Xian was not a fool. He would not fight head-on. The priority now was to save Yufei and go to Senmu College. Once he entered the honorable realm, the Azure Red Society would be nothing to him. For now, he only needed to delay for a while. At the thought of this, he waved the wind shadow sword and slashed out countless sword chi. The sword chi was dazzling like a terrifying sea of lightning. It was boundless, and the sky was filled with flashes of lightning. It made a dull sound, and the entire hall was shaking non-stop. How dare you! The green-robed elder sneered. He did not expect that Lin Xian would dare to take the initiative to attack with such a huge difference in strength. However, it was all in vain. He was a level 2 honorable and had absolute strength to suppress him. He believed that as long as he attacked, he would be able to take down Lin Xian quickly. The petals around him danced quickly. Each petal was crystal clear and extremely red, and they emitted a terrifying aura. Go! With a low shout, countless petals flew and formed a huge hand that slapped toward Lin Xian. The terrifying hand pushed horizontally, causing the air to explode and the void to tremble unsteadily. The top of the hall was covered by a red light like a wave of blood. It was monstrous and terrifying. Slash! Lin Xian controlled the sword chi and slashed at the huge hand formed by the blood-colored petals. Clang! The sound of metal clashing was heard. The petals danced in the air, and the sword chi surged. Instantly, the top of the hall was split open. Boom! In the end, the terrifying energy blew the entire roof away, revealing the blue sky. He can actually block it. The green-robed elder below was surprised. Even a level 1 honorable could not block his palm, but this fake honorable in front of him blocked it. Interesting. The green-robed elder sneered. I hope you won't disappoint me. Then, he waved his sleeve, and the situation above changed again. Those petals rotated and emitted light. They danced quickly, and soon, the huge blood-colored hand disappeared and was replaced by a ferocious blood dragon. Roar! The sound was like thunder, and it stirred up waves of blood that drowned the sky. The blood dragon was even more powerful than the huge hand just now. Chapter 701. It was a crimson blood dragon, and its huge body filled the entire sky. Even the void seemed to be collapsing. A sharp and terrifying aura assaulted Lin Xian's senses, causing him to tense up. Is this the power of a second heaven's supremacy? It's really powerful! Lin Xian gasped. This power had completely surpassed that of a first heaven's supremacy. Fortunately, he had the red lotus armor and dragon sword soul, so he could withstand it. Otherwise, another first heaven's supremacy would not be able to withstand it. Roar! The flood dragon roared and charged at Lin Xian with its huge body. Wild wind slash! Lin Xian did not dare to be careless, and used the wild wind slash that he had just comprehended. He slashed out with his sword, and a strong wind blew. Waves of air surged and whistled through the sky. Everyone watched in horror as a huge sword chi storm gathered in the sky. In the blink of an eye, it became huge. The violent wind blew everything away, and more than half of the buildings in the City Lord Manor were destroyed. The scene was too terrifying. The flying tiger troop in the City Lord Manor trembled as if they were facing a blood realm storm. Lin Xian's sword move was comprehended from the blood realm storm, and it was extremely violent. The sword chi storm blew past like thousands of beasts roaring. It shook the space and charged toward the blood dragon. Rumble! The huge storm and the ferocious blood dragon collided in the sky, creating a terrifying storm. Lin Xian did not stop after slashing down with his sword. He formed a seal with his left hand and used the vermilion bird seal. The divine vermilion bird was born from fire. It was like a scorching sun in the sky as it charged toward the blood dragon. Lin Xian used 2 killer moves to fight against the second heaven's supremacy. In an instant, the situation was in a stalemate. What? He actually withstood it? The martial artists below were shocked and could not believe it. The red flower emissary's face darkened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He snorted and prepared to attack with all his might. At that moment, a loud laugh came from the sky. Ha ha, kid, you are indeed here. How dare you kill someone from the Azure Red Gang? Let's see where you can run to this time. The voice was like a terrifying thunder god. It was deafening. It's the green flower emissary. At that moment, all the martial artists in the City Lord Manor looked at the sky. Not good! Lin Xian's expression changed drastically. He could feel a powerful aura rapidly approaching. Another second-level venerable! He furrowed his brows. The situation was terrible, and he couldn't resist at all. Fortunately, the dark red godly dragon and the dark red godly dragon rescued Yufei. Go! Without hesitation, Lin Xian grabbed Yufei and soared into the sky. Kid, where do you think you're going? Red Flower Emissary was furious. How could she allow Lin Xian to escape? Red flowers danced in the air, forming a large net that covered the sky. At the same time, the figure in the sky also reached out a terrifying palm that seemed to cover the entire sky. Lin Xian let out a long whistle as the wind and thunder wings appeared on his back. They were about 100 meters long. With a flap of the wings, he turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared in a flash. Whoosh! Boom! The red net and the sky-covering hand missed their target. Immediately, 2 furious roars were heard. Brat, no matter where you run to, I will kill you! Humph! Azure Red Association, I will remember this. I will pay you back 100 times for what you did today. Lin Xian's voice reverberated in the air. All the martial artists in Flying Tiger City were shocked, and the 2 second-level venerables quickly chased after him. However, after half a day, they still lost him. The 2 of them roared crazily and destroyed the surrounding mountains and rivers. Lin Xian used his Earth-class movement technique and wind and thunder wings to successfully shake off the 2 of them. He stopped in a dense forest. Blurg. As soon as he landed, Yu Fei bent over and vomited. No, I'm going to die. This is too exciting. Yu Fei sat on the ground, his legs trembling. He was only a small martial artist in the middle stage of the spirit detecting realm. He had never experienced this kind of speed. He almost fainted just now. I'm sorry that you've been dragged into this because of me. Lin Xian apologized. It's okay. Yu Fei shook his head and then stared at Lin Xian. You look excited. Big brother, I didn't expect you to be so strong. You are actually a venerable. I, Yu Fei, will follow you from now on. You don't have to do this. Lin Xian smiled bitterly. No, you are a man. You saved my life, so you are my benefactor. Yu Fei patted his chest and said, From today onwards, my life is yours. But I am going to Senmu College. You shouldn't be able to get in. Besides, don't you still have a job? Lin Xian asked. What job? Every day, I deliver goods in the Scarlet Plains. It's not interesting at all. Yu Fei curled his lips. Every few days there will be storms. If this goes on, it will be a waste of life. Then how is it not a waste of life? Of course it is to cultivate martial arts, build a force, and dominate the blood domain. Yu Fei's face was full of hope. Brother Xian, you are so strong. Have you never thought of developing in the blood domain? It's rare to see such a young venerable. I think that in a few decades, you will be able to reach the top of the blood venerable list. At that time, you might be able to replace those martial venerables. Lin Xian pondered. Ever since he came to the Tianwu continent, he had plans to build his own force. In the Sand region, he had tried it. When he left, he even asked Nan Gongseng and Ma Rulong to develop in the Quicksand City. He was no longer an ignorant child. After seeing so many things, he knew the importance of a force to a warrior. Moreover, after entering the Venerable Realm, the resources needed were even more precious. It was difficult to obtain enough with one's own strength. If there was a force to handle it, it would save a lot of trouble. Moreover, this was for the sake of his family in the future. He had left the Great Xia for 3 years. In these 3 years, he had always had one goal, which was to save his family. In the past, he thought that condensing a martial soul was enough. However, when he met the Black Dragon sect leader, he changed his mind. The sect leader's strength was too terrifying. He was very close to the King Realm. If he rashly returned, not only would he not be able to save his family, he might be captured by the sect leader and seize the Great Dragon Sword Soul. Therefore, he had to have enough strength to return to the Tianan region and save his family. At this point, Lin Xian had determined 2 goals. First, wait for the Palace of Gods of War to open and ask about his father's whereabouts. Second, increase his strength and go back to save his family. All of this required strength. Therefore, he planned to enter Senmu College to improve himself. At the same time, he would secretly build a force in the blood region and slowly develop it. What are your specialties? Lin Xian asked. Hearing this, Yu Fei was delighted. He knew that this was a test. Brother Xian, although I'm not strong, I'm very familiar with the blood region. Moreover, I'm good at gathering information. I can definitely help you. Alright, let's go to Senmu College first. When the time comes, you can stay in a nearby city. We'll discuss it later, Lin Xian said. Damn, kid, you want to build a force? The Crimson Dragon poked its head out, its face full of excitement. I raise my dragon claw in agreement. When the time comes, I'll dominate the entire blood region and all the resources will be mine. The Crimson Dragon laughed. That way, I'll be able to recover very quickly. All right, stop dreaming. Lin Xian knocked it. You want to dominate the blood region? Be careful not to be captured and used for alchemy. Chapter 702. Yu Fei was indeed a survival expert. Relying on his experience, Lin Xian avoided several dangers. The two of them rushed all the way and finally arrived at Windy City. Windy City was a huge city and also an important transportation hub. It was also the only way to get to Senmu College. Therefore, it was incomparably prosperous. Moreover, according to Yu Fei's introduction, this city was different from Flying Tiger City and other cities. It was not dominated by a single power. Instead, there were many powers coexisting in the city. Thinking about it, it was impossible for such an important city to be controlled by a single power. After paying the entrance fee, the two of them walked into the city. Originally, Lin Xian planned to rest and replenish his supplies before leaving. However, when he was eating, he heard news about the auction. This made him somewhat moved. He had many things on him that needed to be dealt with, and this auction was undoubtedly a good opportunity. Brother Xian, you want to participate in the auction? Yu Fei asked. Yes, I have some things to sell. I want to see if there are any good things. Why don't you wait for a while? In any case, this place is not far from Senmu College. You can come again when the time comes. Oh, why? In 3 months, there will be a super auction here. It will be very large, Yu Fei said. In previous super auctions, there will always be good things coming out. In the past, there have been 2 Earth-rank martial arts here. Earth-rank martial arts? Lin Xian was surprised. As his cultivation increased, he realized more and more how powerful and precious Earth-rank martial arts were. This kind of martial arts was only mastered by the superpowers. It was impossible for ordinary people to master it. However, the super auction here provided an opportunity. Earth-rank martial arts were very rare. If it really appeared, those Blood Realm experts would definitely go crazy. In 3 months, okay. Lin Xian nodded. He decided to come again in 3 months. After eating, the two of them rested for the night and set off again. This time, they did not enter the city. Instead, they set off directly for Senmu College. Finally, they arrived at Sky Pool City. Sky Pool City was even larger than Windy City and was also ancient. No one seemed to remember when it was built. It was as if the Sky Pool City was created when the Blood Domain was created. There was another reason why Sky Pool City was so famous, and that was because the city had one of the most famous colleges in the Sky Martial Continent, Senmu College. Senmu College was huge, occupying almost half of Tianzi City. It was like a colossus, standing tall on the ground, with no end in sight. Senmu College was the only force in Sky Pool City. The other forces in the Blood Realm could not enter, nor did they dare to. There had once been an 8th-level venerable who had caused trouble here, and he had been killed in the end. From then on, Heavenly Pool City had become a forbidden area of the Blood Realm. However, it had become a paradise for the geniuses of the Sky Martial Continent. It was precisely because of the strength and safety of Sky Pool City and Senmu College that countless geniuses from all over the continent gathered here. Lin Xian came at the right time, because in a few days, it would be the day of the Academy's selection. As long as they passed the test, they would be able to enter the Academy to cultivate. Thus, Sky Pool City was currently very lively, with young martial artists everywhere. Lin Xian and Yu Fei walked on the streets, looking at the passers-by, and praised him in their hearts. Brother Xian, this is my first time coming to Sky Pool City. The martial artists here are so strong. Yu Fei had a face full of envy. Lin Xian was also surprised. They were indeed very strong. In just a short while, he had already seen a few martial artists who were not weaker than him. The aura on their bodies was abnormally strong, and even had a faint martial spirit aura. As expected of Senmu College, to actually attract so many young experts. Lin Xian was excited. Competing with geniuses was the greatest joy. Sorry, it's full. It's full. After asking a few ins, they were all told that they were full, and there were no extra rooms. Not only Lin Xian, but the martial artists who came later also did not have a place to stay. I've heard of a place where there should be a place to stay. Yu Fei thought for a long time, and said slowly. However, it doesn't seem easy to stay in a room there. Not easy? Lin Xian was puzzled. Brother Xian, you'll know when you get there. Soon, Lin Xian arrived at the place that Yu Fei mentioned. Wind-sweeping building was not just a building, but a huge and luxurious inn. It had everything from ordinary rooms to exquisite independent courtyards. At this moment, Wind-sweeping building was surrounded by countless martial artists. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian sighed. With so many people, even if there were empty rooms in the past, they were probably gone now. Looking at the crowded and noisy scene, Lin Xian found it funny. He found it hard to imagine that so many young geniuses would quarrel over a room. Bang! A low voice interrupted Lin Xian's fantasy. He looked up and saw the crowd in front of Wind-sweeping building disperse. Several figures flew out and fell to the ground. Are you deaf? I said there's no room, so there's no room. How dare you rush me? The young and beautiful lady boss walked out with her hands on her hips. She was as arrogant as a princess. You dare to hit us? The young men got up from the ground with indignant looks on their faces. It was too shameful. They were geniuses and outstanding talents, yet they couldn't even rent a room, and were even thrown out. Moreover, there were so many people watching. How could they survive in the future? The young men were so angry that their faces turned pale. They wanted to find a hole to hide in. Among them, one of the young men looked at the young and beautiful lady boss with a murderous aura. Oh, you dare to hit us? The young and beautiful lady boss sneered. Why don't you try? Then, she took out a sign. Open your dog eyes and take a good look. This is Senma College's examination room. If you want to cause trouble here, you can forget about entering Senma College for the rest of your life. Hearing this, the young man trembled. He retracted his aura and turned to leave with a gloomy face. Humph, a piece of trash dares to behave atrociously here. The young and beautiful lady boss clapped her hands and turned to walk inside. At this moment, a voice sounded. Lady boss room? The young and beautiful lady boss looked impatient. She turned around and was about to shout coldly. However, she suddenly saw the jade pendant on the young man's waist and smiled charmingly. Sky Room 15. You're so lucky. This is the only room left. What? There's still room? What's going on? Isn't there no more? Yeah, why can he stay here but we can't? F***CK, even if it's Senma College's inn, you can't be so arrogant. This is not fair. The group of people was dissatisfied. Humph, a bunch of idiots. What do you know? The young lady boss snorted. She pointed at the young man's jade pendant and said, See, the immortal martial jade pendant. He's a quasi-immortal martial disciple who passed the internal test. Can you compare? What? He passed the internal test. Everyone was shocked and looked at the young man in disbelief. Senma College's examination was very strict. Although these people were all geniuses, only 10% of them could pass the examination. The internal test was even stricter. The passing rate was only 1%. Chapter 703. The young man in front of them had actually passed the internal test, which shocked everyone. The young and beautiful lady boss sneered with her hands on her hips. So? Are you convinced? If you're a candidate for the internal test, you'll also have a room. The crowd was not satisfied. Are only candidates allowed to live here? That's unfair. That's right. We might also enter Senma College. You can't treat us like this. Fair? The young and beautiful lady boss turned around. Okay, I'll give you fairness. There's only one room left, and it's a high-end suite, Storm Courtyard. Come and stay here if you can. Storm Courtyard. The crowd was surprised. Many of them wanted to retreat because Storm Courtyard was not an ordinary courtyard. It was the best courtyard in Wind-Sweeping Tower. Not only did one have to pay an expensive rent to live here, but one also needed to be strong and powerful. In other words, ordinary people could not live here at all. However, the martial artists who came here were all geniuses with powerful families behind them. After some consideration, they decided to live in Storm Courtyard. Lin Xian stood where he was. After learning about Storm Courtyard, he was slightly surprised. Then he shook his head slightly, and did not intend to compete. Lady Boss, I'll take Storm Courtyard. You'll take it? How arrogant! Who are you? Lady Boss, keep Storm Courtyard for me. Stop fighting. It's mine. The crowd chattered and quarreled again. The young and beautiful Lady Boss crossed her arms and stood in the shop, looking coldly at them. Suddenly, a young voice sounded. Stop fighting. It's full. Storm Courtyard is gone. Gone? The crowd vomited blood and shouted in dissatisfaction. Didn't you say there was more? Why is it gone? Lady Boss, what's wrong? However, before the Lady Boss could speak, a young man of 14 or 15 years old appeared in front of the crowd. The young man was wearing exquisite clothes and said with a childish face, Because Storm Courtyard has just been booked by my young master. Who does your young master think he is? How dare he beat us to it? Ask him to give up the room. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. Kid, it's too dangerous here. It's not something you can get involved in. Get out of here! The crowd looked unhappy and shouted coldly. Hearing these people insulting the young master, the young man's face tightened and anger appeared in his eyes. He said angrily, Hurry up and apologize, or don't blame me for being rude. You're welcome? Everyone laughed. How can you not be polite? Don't tell me you want to fight? They didn't put the youth in their eyes at all. It was no wonder. These people were all geniuses and were extremely proud. Not to mention a young man, even if they were geniuses of the same generation, they would not be convinced at all. However, in the next moment, they were all stunned. It was because the young man in front of them suddenly formed a seal with his small hands, releasing a dazzling light that pushed forward. Bang! Those arrogant martial artists were caught off guard and were hit by the light, immediately retreating. Whoosh! For a moment, a vacuum appeared in front of wind-sweeping tower. Everyone was shocked, and a trace of fear appeared in their eyes. A 14 or 15-year-old child was actually able to repel them? Especially those who were hit, their faces were filled with disbelief. However, this expression was quickly replaced by anger. Brat, you dare to attack? Do you want to die? Being defeated by a young man in front of everyone made them feel ashamed. If news of this spread, they wouldn't be able to live anymore. In the distance, Lin Xian was also surprised. The attack just now wasn't very powerful, but it was very exquisite. It could be said that the young man had completely relied on a profound and exquisite martial arts technique to repel everyone. Interesting. I didn't expect Sky Pool City to have so many experts. Lin Xian was excited. A young man was already so amazing. How powerful would the young man be? In front of him, someone couldn't help but attack. The wind from the palm was so strong that it seemed to tear the void apart. However, the young man was disdainful. He stepped forward and kept dodging, calmly avoiding the palm every time. What? Everyone was shocked. This was once again beyond their expectations. However, what surprised them was what happened next. They saw the young man continuously forming seals in the void, forming a blue treasure bottle and raising it above his head. Boom! The mouth of the bottle was facing down, and a ray of light shot out. The light was vast and mighty like the Milky Way, surging in the void and crashing into the other party in the blink of an eye. Poof! With one move, the other party was sent flying. Then, the young man shot out another ray of Milky Way water in front of Windsweepin. My young master has booked Windsweepin. Does anyone have a problem with that? The young voice sounded again. Everyone was silent. The battle just now had shocked them. That exquisite footwork, that mysterious hand seal, every one of them left them astonished. The young man's cultivation wasn't very high, but his strength was terrifying. The young master behind him must be even more powerful. No one dared to take the risk because they weren't confident. Therefore, there was a short period of silence. The young man was satisfied. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He turned around and was about to pay the room fee. However, at that moment, a clear voice came from afar again. "Windsweepin' is ours!" Everyone was shocked and turned around. Who was it that dared to attack them? Lin Xian also looked over curiously. He saw 7 figures appear at the end of the street and were walking toward them. They walked very slowly. Every time they took a small step, they covered hundreds of meters. It was as if they had shrunk the ground into an inch. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of everyone. Only then did everyone see them clearly. 7 young and beautiful girls appeared in front of everyone. They were beautiful and had impressive figures. They wore long white dresses with a red leaf embroidered on their sleeves. They didn't stop and walked directly toward Windsweepin. "Brother Xian, let's go and take a look." Yu Fei was excited when he saw the 7 beauties. Lin Xian nodded and the 2 of them walked forward. The martial artists around them also surrounded them. "Lady boss, I want a room." The last girl walked out and said in a sweet voice. The young and beautiful lady boss glanced at the red leaf embroidered on their sleeves and laughed. "What a coincidence! The last Windsweepin has been booked by my young master." The young man interrupted the lady boss before she could finish her sentence. "Your young master?" The young girls laughed as if they had heard something funny. "In Tianwu continent there are only 4 people who can be called young masters. As far as we know, those 4 people won't come here. Who does your young master think he is? How dare he call himself a young master?" The 7 of them laughed, and didn't put the young man in their eyes. "You!" The young man was so angry that his face turned pale. "Damn it, how dare you humiliate my young master? Get lost!" The young girl who had asked earlier said coldly. "You don't have the right to speak here. Ask your young master to come here." Everyone was stunned. The 7 young girls in front of them were very powerful. They actually ignored the young man. One had to know that many people had been beaten back by that young man earlier. Chapter 704. Her cold voice caused the surroundings to become silent. The young man's face turned pale. He clenched his fists and clenched his index finger. The spiritual energy in his body surged. "You want to fight?" The young girl smiled. "I advise you to give up on that idea. Otherwise, you will die a miserable death." The young man didn't believe her. He quickly formed a seal with his hands. However, halfway through, his body stiffened. A line of blood appeared on his cheek, and traces of blood flowed out. The young man was terrified. Although the wound wasn't deep, he didn't see the trajectory of the opponent's attack. If the attack was aimed at his throat, he might have already died. The surrounding martial artists were even more shocked. Most of them didn't see it clearly. Only a few experts understood. "Brother Xian, what's going on?" Yu Fei was puzzled. "Maple leaves," Lin Xian said. The wound was caused by the maple leaves. He saw the scene clearly. The mysterious young girl had used a maple leaf to cut the young man's cheek. Her speed and strength were controlled accurately. It could be said that if she wanted to kill the young man, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. The young man was terrified. He raised his hands in the air and didn't know what to do. At this moment, a pair of strong hands supported him. "Young master!" The young man was surprised. Everyone was shocked and looked over. Lin Xian also looked up curiously. A young man in a blue and white robe appeared. There was a jade flute on his waist. His expression was cold. "It was you who injured my servant?" The young man in the blue and white robe asked. "It was me," the young girl sneered. "Remember, my name is Xiao Feng." The young man's voice was calm. "If you hear this name in the future, take a detour. You are courting death." Suyu shouted. She raised her hand and threw out 2 maple leaves. It was so fast that most people didn't see it clearly. Buzz! Buzz! However, Xiao Feng caught it with his hands. The two maple leaves trembled between his fingers. They wanted to escape, but they were powerless. How dare you be so arrogant with such little strength? Go back and train for another 2 years. Hearing this, Suyu was enraged. She shouted and thrust her palms out like butterflies. A terrifying and vast power gushed out. She waved her palms, which were extremely dazzling. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect the two of them to really fight. The people of Wind-Sweeping Building were dissatisfied. They wanted to scold them. At this moment, another young girl walked out and threw down maple leaves. This is Red Leaf Valley's business. Unrelated people, scram! Her voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it. Red Valley! It's them! Many people took a breath and quickly retreated. This was a great power that was incomparably powerful. Moreover, their way of doing things was extreme. Just like just now, if someone tried to stop them after they scattered the red leaves, they would become the target of their slaughter. In the past, there were supremacies who broke their rules and were all killed. Suyu and Xiao Feng were fighting. Both of them controlled their power and didn't affect Wind-Sweeping Tower, as if they were worried about something. Suyu was knocked back. She clutched her chest in pain. You dare to hurt me? Go! Suyu snorted coldly. Suddenly, the 7 people attacked together. Stubborn! Xiao Feng coldly snorted. However, Xiao Feng dealt with it calmly. However, the people around him weren't so lucky. Especially the young page boy. He was sent flying by the energy. The young page boy screamed. His body was sent flying like a meteor. Xiao Feng was furious. His body swayed, but he was blocked by the 7 people's formation. Seeing the young page boy flying, everyone dispersed. No one dared to catch him. Red Leaf Valley's warning was still echoing in their ears. Red Leaf Valley was vicious. They even dared to kill Venerables. Therefore, no one dared to catch him. Everyone dispersed, and a vacuum appeared. However, there were 2 people who were exceptions. They were Lin Xian and Yu Fei. Yu Fei was afraid. He wanted to retreat, but seeing that Lin Xian didn't move, he could only stand still. Lin Xian looked at the young page boy flying over and sighed. He waved his sleeve and caught him. Thank you. The young page boy's face was pale. What? Everyone was shocked. They looked at this scene in disbelief. There was actually someone who dared to interfere in Red Leaf Valley's matters. Did he want to die? The young and beautiful lady boss was also surprised. She stared at Lin Xian and suddenly frowned as if she had discovered something. The most furious ones were the 7 girls from Red Leaf Valley. One of them even shot out several maple leaf concealed weapons at Lin Xian and the young page boy. The young page boy trembled. He couldn't see the trajectory at all. Everyone sneered as they watched the show. They thought that Lin Xian was dead meat. Yu Fei also stood behind Lin Xian nervously. Lin Xian, on the other hand, frowned slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, he formed a whirlpool of energy and collected the maple leaf concealed weapon. What? Nothing! Everyone was stunned. They realized that they had underestimated Lin Xian. The people from Red Leaf Valley were also stunned. At this moment, Xiao Feng shouted angrily. A powerful aura erupted from his body and forced the 7 people back. The 2 sides stopped and faced each other. Xiao Feng's body flashed and instantly appeared in front of Lin Xian. Brother, thank you for your help, Xiao Feng said. How should I address you? Lin Xian. Brother Lin, I will remember this favor. On the other hand, the people from Red Leaf Valley were enraged. They glared at Lin Xian with murderous intent in their eyes. Brat, you dare to interfere in Red Leaf Valley's matters. You're dead meat. Good, I'll kill both of you today. Suyu snorted. All right, everyone stop. At this moment, the young and beautiful lady boss said, No need to fight. I've already decided who to give the room to. Humph. Hearing this, Suyu and the rest stopped and said proudly, Storm Courtyard will definitely be ours. Sisters, let's go. No. The young and beautiful lady boss shook her finger. I'll give the room to him. Then, she pointed to the front. Xiao Feng! Everyone was shocked. The people from Red Leaf Valley were furious. What did you say? Why are you giving it to that Xiao guy? It's not Xiao guy. It's that Lin Xian, young hero Lin. The young and beautiful lady boss smiled and persuaded. What? Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe it. Even Xiao Feng was surprised. This result was out of everyone's expectations. For a moment, many people stared at Lin Xian with unkind expressions. If it was Red Leaf Valley or Xiao Feng, they could tolerate it. But to give it to an unknown martial artist, they couldn't tolerate it. Especially the 7 girls from Red Leaf Valley. They were full of killing intent as they stared at Lin Xian. They couldn't wait to tear him apart. Lin Xian smiled bitterly and rubbed his nose. Giving the room to him was something he never thought of. But it sounded good. He was still worried about not having a room to live in. As for Red Leaf Valley, he had already offended them, so it didn't matter if he offended them again. Why? Someone was unconvinced. I like people who act bravely for a just cause. Can't I? The young and beautiful lady boss snorted. If that's the case, then I'll take my leave. Brother Lin, see you at the academy. Xiao Feng cupped his fists and left with his errand boy. The others stared at Lin Xian with unkind expressions. Chapter 705. Lin Xian's unexpected acquisition of the Tempest Courtyard made him the target of envy. The people from the Red Leaf Valley especially wanted to attack him. However, they were stopped by the young and beautiful lady boss. The lady boss was very forceful and chased away the people from the Red Leaf Valley. The 7 beautiful girls looked unfriendly, but they seemed to be very wary of the Tempest Courtyard, so they did not attack. However, before they left, Suyu warned in a cold voice. Brat, you dared to steal from my master. You're dead meat. Master? Everyone was shocked. These 7 outstanding women were actually servants. Just how powerful was their master? Could he be a prodigy from the Red Leaf Valley? Someone guessed. However, no matter what, they all thought that Lin Xian was dead meat. Lin Xian pursed his lips. Since he had already offended them, there was no need to be polite. Sure, we'll talk about this after you enter the academy. Then, he ignored the 7 mad women and walked into the Tempest Courtyard with Yufei. Only a group of envious rabbits was left behind. The Tempest Courtyard was very large. It was equivalent to a small mansion. There were landscape gardens, pavilions, and towers. There was even a green lake in the center. It was very beautiful. Lin Xian and Yufei were each given a guest room and prepared to rest. However, the young and beautiful lady boss came not long after. She carried a few dishes and a pot of spirit wine into Lin Xian's room. The lady boss was very young. Lin Xian estimated that she was only 20 years old. Her snow-like skin was smoother than silk. Her long hair was black, and her big eyes were watery. When she smiled, it was as if she could speak. The 2 sweet dimples on her cheeks made her even more adorable. Lin Xian was stunned when he saw this. He did not expect the lady boss to personally deliver food. Moreover, combined with the previous incident, he felt that the lady boss seemed to want to get close to him. This made him wary. How is it? Is your stay comfortable? The young and beautiful lady boss asked. Come, try the dishes I cooked. What, do you want me to feed you? Lin Xian, finally, he sighed. Tell me, what's your purpose? Purpose? The young and beautiful lady boss blinked. Why do you think so? You're willing to offend Red Leaf Valley to give me the Storm Courtyard. I'm afraid it's not just because of interest, right? Sigh, you really don't have a conscience. I let you stay in a luxurious house and you still suspect others. The young and beautiful lady boss lightly snorted. But to be honest, it really isn't because of Red Leaf Valley. Then why? Because I've seen you before. Where? In a painting. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't think that you really existed. Lin Xian. He didn't quite understand and wanted to ask for clarification. However, the young and beautiful lady boss didn't seem to give him a chance. All right, enjoy your meal. I have to go. Windsweeping restaurant is very busy. There are many things that need to be taken care of. With that, she stood up and walked away, swaying her hips. She pushed the door open and saw Yufei walking towards her. The young and beautiful lady boss giggled and then left. Yufei was stunned. Then, as if he understood something, he revealed a strange smile. He ran into the room and closed the door. He said mysteriously, "Big brother Xian, I admire you. You got it done so quickly." "Done? What did you get done?" Lin Xian didn't understand. "Done with the lady boss. Don't tell me that you two aren't having an affair. I won't believe it even if you beat me to death." Yufei had an I know look. Lin Xian. In the following days, Lin Xian stayed in the storm courtyard to cultivate, while Yufei went out to gather information. Although Yufei's strength was average, he was very good at gathering information. Soon, he returned to Lin Xian's room. "Big brother Xian, I got it." "Oh." Lin Xian opened his eyes. "Let's hear it." Senmu College's assessment is divided into 3 categories: aptitude, strength, and willpower. Those who pass these 3 categories can enter Senmu College. If you're not a disciple in the internal test, the normal assessment rate is usually 1 in 10. Moreover, this is under the condition that all of you are geniuses. After listening to Yufei's explanation, Lin Xian understood. To put it bluntly, Senmu College wanted geniuses among geniuses. "How many days do we start?" 3 days. Also, according to my sources, there are many more geniuses this time than before. It seems that there's something in the school that's attracting them. But I don't know what it is exactly. More people? Lin Xian rubbed his chin. You've already asked enough? We'll talk about the rest after I enter the school. After that, Lin Xian gave Yufei a sum of spirit stones to let him stay in Tianzi City. Of course, he didn't stay in the storm courtyard. It was too expensive. Even Lin Xian felt pained by the price of the house. During these 3 days, Lin Xian wasn't the only one collecting information. Everyone else was doing the same. Moreover, some of the experts were not only collecting information about the assessment, but also about their opponents. Wind-sweeping tower, Luofeng courtyard. A beautiful figure in white sat by the lake like a fairy. Beside her was a cute girl and a middle-aged scholar. In front of her was a half-kneeling man in black. The woman in white was Murong Qingqing. She was also in Tianzi City. How's the investigation going? Miss, it's done. The few powerful people this time are all staying in Wind-sweeping tower. Shaoli from the floating life courtyard. He's a genius from the sand region. He's good with sabers. He's estimated to be a first-layer venerable. Lan Bai from the Lingyun courtyard. He's good with poison. He once poisoned a venerable to death. He seems to be related to the 10,000 poison sect. Xing Yaotian from the Sunset courtyard. He's a first-layer venerable. He's a disciple of the Shen family. As for the Storm courtyard, this person is very special. It's said that he was randomly chosen by the lady boss when he was fighting with others in the Red Leaf Valley. Randomly chosen? Murong Qingqing muttered. Those who can enter this place are no ordinary people. What did you find out? I haven't found anything yet. I only know that he's called Lin Xian. Lin Xian? Murong Qingqing was stunned. Then, she asked, is he a young man? Yes. I didn't expect him to come here. Murong Qingqing muttered. Then, she said, very well. You may leave. Yes. The man in black left respectfully. He probably came to Senmu College because he heard that the Palace of Ares was closed. The Wild Palm scholar said, Humph, that despicable guy. I curse him that he can't pass the assessment. Linger huffed. Murong Qingqing was very happy. This is great. After entering the college, there will be plenty of opportunities. I don't believe that he can reject this time. Miss, although Lin Xian is exceptionally talented, we still have to prioritize that matter. The Wild Palm scholar reminded her. Don't worry, I know. Murong Qingqing nodded. If the news is true, it'll be too shocking. No matter what, I have to fight for that qualification. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Senmu College's assessment had begun. The first round tested one's aptitude. It mainly examined one's physique, bloodline, talent, and other congenital conditions. In this aspect, Lin Xian's talent was outstanding. His comprehension was extremely high. In addition, his physique had been nourished by the earth's spirit liquid and was relatively strong. However, in the aspect of bloodline, he was ordinary. In fact, compared to those martial artists with bloodline power, he was a little ordinary. However, overall, he passed the aptitude test. Chapter 706. In a square in Tianzi City, there were many strange devices and arrays. Next to them were the official disciples of Senmu College. In the middle were a few elders. They were the chief examiners for the assessment. They looked at the dense crowd in the square with a satisfied expression. There are more people than expected this time. Yeah, I hope there are some good seedlings. It's best if they have the power of bloodline. The elders whispered to each other. They were looking forward to the assessment. Those who were in charge of the array formation were the disciples. Their chins were light as they looked around arrogantly. The young male disciples frowned in dissatisfaction. However, they could only endure it because of their status. The female disciples, on the other hand, were staring at the official disciples with infatuation. Some of them even kept throwing flirtatious glances at them. Brother Yan, I heard that goddess Murong is here too. Is that true? Among the official disciples, many of them swept their gazes over the crowd. They were still young, and it was the time for them to fall in love. In addition, Murong Qingqing was too famous. Hence, they were very curious. Yeah. The young man who was called Brother Yan nodded slightly. He scanned the crowd and stopped at a spot. Yan Qingyang's lips curled into a smile that he thought was dashing. That was Murong Qingqing. The surrounding disciples were excited when they heard that. They looked over and saw a beautiful white figure in the crowd. She was as beautiful as a fairy. She's so beautiful. The rumors are true. She's the most beautiful woman in the world. Whoever gets her attention will be blessed by 3 lifetimes. Heh, with Brother Yang around, we'll definitely get her. The surrounding disciples complimented. Kid, I like your sweet mouth, Yan Qingyang said with a smile. He looked at Murong Qingqing with a face full of adoration. He had taken a liking to such a beautiful woman at first sight. At the same time, he swore to himself that he would get her. Lin Xian also saw Murong Qingqing. However, he did not walk over. Instead, he nodded and greeted her from afar. Lin Xian would definitely become a public enemy if he walked over. He did not want to get into trouble. At the same time, he saw Shaoli and Xing Yaotian. Lin Xian also greeted the former. As for the latter, he completely ignored him. Xing Yaotian gritted his teeth in anger. His eyes were gloomy as he stared at Lin Xian, his killing intent surfacing. Now that he'd successfully advanced into the Exalt realm, he was absolutely confident in his ability to kill Lin Xian. Brat, I'll let you be arrogant for a while. Once we enter the academy, see how I'll kill you! Boom! The bell rang and everyone fell silent. At this moment, the elder of Senmu College stepped forward and announced loudly. The assessment begins. The first aptitude test begins. Then, everyone started the test according to the order. The test was divided into 10 groups, and each group had 3 light pillars, respectively testing talent, constitution, and bloodline. Every test had a score of 1 to 9. Since most people didn't have bloodline power, they passed with a score of 12 or more. However, the higher one's score, the more attention they would receive from the academy. Talent 5 points, physique 6 points, bloodline 0 points, failed. Next, the examiner said coldly. Hearing that, the examiner left dejectedly. Talent 7 points, physique 6 points, bloodline 0 points, passed. Talent 9 points, physique 9 points. Lin Xian placed his palm on the first two light pillars, which immediately caused the examiner to exclaim. They had never seen someone with a score of 9 points, and this sound attracted everyone's attention. Many examiners looked toward Lin Xian. At the same time, the elders also looked over curiously. Talent and physique, a score of 9 points. This kind of martial artist is really rare. Looks like another prodigy has appeared. I wonder how his bloodline is like? Another elder asked with concern. Everyone also wanted to know and paid attention. Among them, Murong Qingqing's white clothes fluttered, and there was a trace of anticipation in his expression. Xin Yaotian's eyes were gloomy, and he kept cursing in his heart. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Lin Xian placed his hand on the third light pillar. However, in the next moment, the examiner was stunned. This was because Lin Xian's bloodline was 0 points. Bloodline, 0 points. What? 0 points, so he doesn't have the power of bloodline. Many people heaved a sigh of relief. A few elders showed a trace of disappointment. It seemed that they valued the power of bloodline very much. Xin Yaotian sneered. Indeed, he doesn't have the power of bloodline. Humph, what a piece of trash. Let's see how you compete with me. Yan Qingyang also shook his head, and his expression returned to normal. To be honest, when Lin Xian displayed a score of 9 points, he was very nervous. However, now that he saw that Lin Xian's bloodline was 0 points, he was relieved. He was a genius, but he would never become a top genius. This was his evaluation of Lin Xian. The power of bloodline was very important and had a nature-defying effect. Especially as one's cultivation increased, the power of bloodline became more prominent. If a martial artist with ordinary talent awakened the power of bloodline, he would become a peerless genius. This was because the power of bloodline was a disguised inheritance. Only when a martial artist of a king level or higher appeared in a family could the bloodline be passed down. Once that power was awakened, it would be very powerful. Lin Xian's talent and perception were very strong. There were not many who could compare with him. However, the first round also involved bloodline. Therefore, in summary, Lin Xian was not outstanding. On the other hand, the other guys who had the power of bloodline were very eye-catching. The people of Senmu College seemed to value bloodline very much. Therefore, in terms of proportion, they favored bloodline. Moreover, they paid special attention to the few people who possessed the power of bloodline. Among them, Murong Qingqing, Xin Yaotian, and the others had displayed the power of bloodline and attracted the attention of the elders of the college. Lin Xian even found that Shaoli had the power of bloodline. "Boy, how are you feeling now?" the Crimson Dragon asked from the demon beast's pouch. "Nothing. In my opinion, the power of bloodline is a gift from the ancestors. It's better to have it, but it doesn't matter if you don't have it." Lin Xian's expression was calm, and his eyes flickered. "So what if I don't have the power of bloodline? When I reach the king level, I can still produce my own power of bloodline." He was very confident and didn't suffer any blow. "It's okay. You didn't suffer much." The Crimson Dragon nodded. "Xiao Xuanzi, remember, you have the great dragon sword soul. It has already surpassed countless bloodline powers. As long as you don't die, you will definitely be a super expert in the future." Lin Xian agreed with this point because he had seen the power of the great dragon sword soul. Its combat strength was truly heaven-defying. So what if he had the power of bloodline? He had killed more than one martial artist of the Divine Bird Palace who had the bloodline of the Divine Bird. Therefore, Lin Xian really didn't take this test seriously. Half a day later, the first round of the test was over. More than half of the martial artists were eliminated. They were all geniuses from their hometowns, but when they came here, they could only accept the cruel reality. "Okay, now for the second round of the test, Will." Chapter 707. At the end of the first round, everyone's points were revealed. Those who had more than 12 points were considered to have passed. Moreover, the higher the points, the higher the ranking. The higher the ranking, the more attention one would receive after entering the academy. Murong Qingqing ranked first, followed by Shaoli and Xin Yaotian. Lin Xian's score was 9 points, but he didn't have any bloodline power, so he was ranked fourth. Xin Yaotian looked at Lin Xian and snorted. His eyes were full of disdain. Lin Xian shook his head slightly when he saw the provocation in Xin Yaotian's eyes. Xin Yaotian was already no match for him when they were in the Sand region. Even if Xin Yaotian had entered the honorable realm, he would still be no match for him. As for the bloodline power, Lin Xian believed that his dragon sword soul could completely suppress it. Therefore, in Lin Xian's opinion, Xin Yaotian's impatient provocation was purely courting death. Okay, let's move on to the second round, the test of willpower. As soon as the elder finished speaking, half of the martial artists left the square. They had all been defeated in the first round and could only be reduced to spectators. Lin Xian was not worried about the test of willpower at all. Willpower referred to the heart of martial arts. It was also whether one could resist temptation, fear, and other emotions. As a swordsman, Lin Xian had sword essence. His willpower was far stronger than that of ordinary people. Moreover, he also had the dragon sword soul, which could destroy everything. It could be said that very few things could affect him. As more than half of the martial artists left, the square suddenly became comfortable, and was no longer so crowded. There were originally more than 1,000 candidates, but now there were only about 500 left. This time, the test was no longer using light pillars. Instead, it was using sparkling white jade platforms. Everyone was given a platform and then sat down. Lin Xian noticed that the mysterious jade platforms were engraved with complicated inscriptions, which emitted an inexplicable power. More than 500 mysterious jade platforms combined with the array underground to form the second round of the test. The second round of the test begins! As soon as the voice sounded, Lin Xian felt the space around him distort, and the scenery around him began to change rapidly. In the next moment, he found himself in a forest. Whoosh! In front of him, a masked man in black holding a long sword rushed over quickly. One! The mighty sword she quickly slashed towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, but did not flicker. Puff! Sword she slashed down, passing through like smoke. At that moment, Lin Xian felt as if he had been struck by lightning, as if he could die at any moment. What a realistic illusion! He exclaimed inwardly. That scene just now was too realistic, and he couldn't tell the difference at all. Moreover, the pain was even more realistic. Lin Xian realized that if someone didn't have a strong will, they might die here. Soon, the scene changed, and Lin Xian began the next round of the test. While Lin Xian was taking the test, a change occurred in the square. A few profound jade platforms glowed with white light, teleporting the martial artists on the platforms outside. All the martial artists who were teleported had pale faces and terrified expressions. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. They didn't know what kind of assessment these people had gone through, but looking at their state, it was probably very horrifying. Looking at the martial artists who failed, the official disciples looked disdainful, but the elders behind them shook their heads slightly. If they can't even withstand the beginning of the test, it's useless no matter how good their aptitude is. Yes, those children are not bad. They passed almost instantly, a red-robed elder said with a smile. He was naturally paying attention to the few people who had bloodline power. That person with double 90 points is not bad either. He also passed instantly, the white-robed old lady said. A few elders watched and nodded continuously. The illusion deepened bit by bit, and the difficulty rose sharply. Many of them looked like they were in pain. However, Lin Xian sat cross-legged on the profound jade platform without any reaction. This greatly surprised the elders. Is this child's will that firm? They had never seen such a calm candidate. One had to know that even Murong Qingqing and the others were frowning. In the illusion test, Lin Xian stood calmly with his hands behind his back. A dragon-shaped sword she coiled around his body, destroying the illusions. Some of the weaker illusions were already on the verge of collapsing before they even reached Lin Xian. Lin Xian was like the nemesis of those illusions. Not only was he not affected, but he also restrained them. That double 90 points is not simple, a few elders exclaimed. Those official disciples were aghast. They were all people who had experienced the illusion test. They were very familiar with the illusion. It was a martial artist's nightmare. In the end, they could not even tell if it was an illusion or reality. However, Lin Xian was not affected at all. Yan Qingyang looked at Lin Xian with a gloomy look. He did not believe that Lin Xian could remain so calm. However, in the next moment, a crisp sound shocked him. Not only him, but everyone was stunned. Even the elders widened their eyes as if they had seen a ghost. A few of them looked at each other, and were too shocked to speak. That was because the mysterious jade platform that Lin Xian was sitting on suddenly cracked open as if it had been cut open by someone. It was too shocking. After entering the illusion, martial artists could not control their bodies, let alone cut open the mysterious jade platform. Now, the mysterious jade platform was broken. Did the illusion not affect him? A few elders were depressed. They had never seen such a thing. The illusion was terrifying. Not to mention these young people, even those old monsters of the 4th or 5th honorable realm would be affected. Strange, it's really strange. A few of them could not understand. The moment the mysterious jade platform broke, Lin Xian came out of the illusion. After knowing what had happened, his face turned pale. Damn it, if I had known, I would not have used the great dragon sword soul to attack, Lin Xian muttered to himself. He was a little worried. What would happen if he broke the mysterious jade platform? That I'm not considered eliminated, right? Lin Xian was a little guilty. The elders suppressed the shock in their hearts as they stared at Lin Xian incessantly. It doesn't count, it doesn't count. Little guy, your performance is beyond our expectations. Young man, what's your name? I happen to be lacking a disciple. Are you interested in being my disciple? A few elders asked. Junior Lin Xian greets all seniors, Lin Xian said respectfully as he stood up and left the square. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. The official disciples widened their eyes. It was the first time they had seen the elders so enthusiastic. Many of them even suspected that they had been affected by the illusion. Yan Qingyang snorted. As a supreme talent, he had not received such treatment. How could a young man who had not even entered the sect receive such treatment? Therefore, he looked at Lin Xian with a hint of hostility. As time passed, more and more people were sent out. These people were pale and looked weak. They were not in good condition. Gradually, the number of people in the square decreased. In the end, only a few figures were left. They were the ones who had performed well in the first round. Chapter 708. There were only a few people left in the square. They were Murong Qiqing, Shaoli, and the others. Lan Bai and a few other experts were also persevering. However, the power of the illusory realm increased as they progressed. Even those supreme talents could not withstand it. Therefore, more and more people were sent out, and the number of people in the square decreased. In the end, there were only 4 people left: Murong Qiqing, Shaoli, Lan Bai, and Xin Yaotian. I'm sure that Murong Qiqing will still be the first in the second round. That goes without saying. Even an idiot can see that. She is indeed a god's favored girl. Not only is she beautiful, but her strength is also unparalleled. Whoever marries such a woman will be blessed for 10 lifetimes. Everyone was talking about her with envy in their eyes. Soon, Lan Bai opened her eyes, sighed, and was sent out. Before long, Xin Yaotian was also sent out. There were only 2 people left in the square. Xin Yaotian found that Lin Xian had already been sent out. Then, he smiled disdainfully. Trash. Not only do you have no blood force, but your willpower is also trash. So what if you are in the lead? The road of martial arts is a test of comprehensive strength. I will let you know who the real supreme talent is. Xin Yaotian was full of ambition. He could not wait to fight with Lin Xian and trample him under his feet. In his opinion, Lin Xian must not have passed the illusory realm and was sent out in advance. Lin Xian ignored Xing Yaotian and stared at the two figures in the square. Shaoli was a swordsman. He possessed saber intent and had even condensed a saber soul. His will was incomparably firm. He was much stronger than ordinary warriors. Lin Xian knew this. Therefore, he speculated that Shaoli would be able to last until the end. However, Murong Qingqing's performance was beyond his expectations. Lin Xian had never been able to see through this girl who had been famous for a long time. He didn't know what her martial soul was, and he didn't even know what her cultivation level was. However, he was sure that Qinshi had definitely entered the Exalt realm a long time ago. Moreover, it would seem like Qinshi's natural talent and will were top-rate existences. As expected of the blessed daughter of the heavens, she is indeed valiant. On the square, several elders looked at the beautiful figure and nodded in satisfaction. Time passed slowly as the crowd waited anxiously. They did not expect that there would be someone who could compete with Murong Qingqing. Suddenly, Shaoli furrowed his brows. His body glowed with white light as he was teleported out. It's out. Looks like the outcome has been decided. Murong Qingqing won. Murong Qingqing's supporters cheered. Not long after, Murong Qingqing was also teleported out. Her forehead was covered with a layer of sparkling and translucent sweat. It seemed that persevering until now was also very difficult for her. All right, the second round is over. Those who persevered for more than 30 minutes have passed the test. Many people sighed and hung their heads dejectedly because nearly half of the people had been eliminated in the second round. Those who had passed were nervously calculating their rankings. The corners of Xing Yaotian's mouth curled up. He was satisfied because he found that he was ranked third. If he could reach the top 3 in the combat assessment, then his overall ranking would be in the top 3. When he entered the academy, he would receive a reward for being in the top 3. The rewards from Senmu College were very generous. Now, let's announce the rankings, the red-robed elder said loudly. The first in the second round is Lin Xian. What? Lin Xian? Everyone was stunned, especially those who were teleported out after Lin Xian. They all looked surprised as if they had misheard. In their opinion, Murong Qingqing would definitely be the first because she had persevered until the end. Even Murong Qingqing herself was flabbergasted. She looked at Lin Xian with curiosity and amazement in her eyes. Shaoli, Lan Bai, and the other geniuses were also puzzled. That's impossible. Wasn't that guy teleported out a long time ago? Elder, did you make a mistake? Xing Yaotian shouted. He did not want Lin Xian to take advantage of a loophole and gain a huge advantage. Many other martial artists were also doubtful. However, some other martial artists were silent because they knew why Lin Xian was judged to be the first. Even the official disciples had strange expressions on their faces as they remained silent. The martial artists who were clamoring about the unfairness seemed to have noticed the situation and quickly asked about it. After learning the situation, they were all shocked. Gradually, the quarreling in the square quieted down. Xing Yaotian was still shouting. I don't understand. Elder, please enlighten me. He would not let Lin Xian be the first. Stop quarreling! The red-robed elder pressed his hands down and emitted a powerful aura. Suddenly, the whole square quieted down. Take a look at Lin Xian's mysterious jade platform and you will understand. Hearing that, everyone looked over and gasped in shock. Xing Yaotian's body stiffened and he stood there in a daze. The mysterious jade platform is broken. How is that possible? He naturally knew the function of the mysterious jade platform. It was impossible to break it. At least with their current strength and cultivation, it was impossible to break it. However, the mysterious jade platform that Lin Xian was sitting on was broken in half. That was too shocking. For a moment, Xing Yaotian's mind went blank and he was stunned. Murong Qingqing, Shaoli, and the others gasped. They had just experienced the illusionary realm and knew how dangerous it was. However, Lin Xian could break the mysterious jade platform. Did that mean that the illusionary realm did not affect him at all? If that was the case, it was too terrifying. After our analysis, we have decided that the first place is Lin Xian, the red-robed elder said. Anyone who is interested can raise the issue. Everyone was silent, and no one spoke. What a joke. Lin Xian had even broken the mysterious jade platform. Who would dare to object? At this time, Xin Yaotian also recovered from the shock, but his expression was very ugly. Not long ago, he was still proud of himself. He thought that Lin Xian's willpower was weak and that he would be eliminated early. He did not expect that Lin Xian would not be affected at all. Not only did he obtain a piece of land, but he even broke the mysterious jade platform. Thinking back to his previous performance, he realized that he was like a clown. It was extremely laughable. Xin Yaotian's body trembled. He gritted his teeth and roared in a low voice. After entering the academy, I will teach you a lesson. Murong Qinchin, on the other hand, looked at Lin Xian with joy in her eyes. It was not a big deal to her that she did not obtain the first place. However, this incident made her realize that Lin Xian was abnormal. This made her even more determined to subdue Lin Xian. Lin Xian seemed to feel Murong Qinchin's fiery gaze. He rubbed his nose helplessly. In the distance, Yan Qingyang's face was gloomy, and he clenched his fists. He had already seen Murong Qinchin as his woman for a long time. But now, her performance had made him furious. Lin Xian, right? After entering the academy, I will teach you a lesson. Yan Qingyang snorted in his heart. Chapter 709. The old man in the red robe announced the rankings quickly. Lin Xian, Murong Qinchin, Shaoli, and Xin Yaotian. Lan Bai occupied the top 5 spots. More than 500 people participated in the second round, but only about 200 people passed the second round. The elimination rate was terrifying. I'll give you an hour to rest and recuperate. After an hour, the third round will begin. The disciples who passed the test sat down cross-legged and began to recuperate. Although there was no battle in the second round, the experience in the illusion had greatly depleted their soul and mind. That process was 10 times more tiring than a battle. Therefore, everyone seized the time to recuperate and prepare for the third round. These people were all geniuses and had elixirs with them. An hour was enough for them to recuperate. Soon, these people opened their eyes, and their eyes shined with light as they excitedly looked forward to the third stage. As long as they passed the third round, they would be able to enter Senmu College. Once they entered Senmu College, their future would be limitless. An hour has passed. The third round will begin now. The old man in the red robe waved his sleeve and a palm-sized exquisite pagoda flew out. It spun in the air and gradually enlarged. Finally, it landed on the square with a boom. The pagoda was divided into 7 levels. It was covered in golden thorns and shone brightly. This is the trial pagoda. It is divided into 7 levels. Those who pass the first 3 levels will pass. Now, the third round will begin. As the old man in the red robe finished speaking, the trial pagoda shone brightly. 4 doors opened in 4 directions on the first level. The cultivators who had successfully passed the second stage immediately dashed forward. Then, more than 200 people entered the trial pagoda. The third round was an actual battle. Of course, it was not a real battle between the candidates and real martial artists. Instead, it was a virtual battle using illusory array mystic treasures. Do not underestimate this kind of battle because it was more dangerous than a real battle. The opponents' levels were formed according to the martial artist's characteristics. There were 7 levels in the trial pagoda. Passing the first 3 levels was considered a success. More than 200 disciples entered the trial pagoda. Then, the door on the first level closed and the light dimmed. The trial pagoda stood in the square like a small golden mountain. Soon everyone realized that the trial tower was different because the first floor showed 234 dots of light. They represented the 234 people who had just entered. Lin Xian followed everyone into the Tower of Trials and appeared in an independent space. In the boundless Scarlet Plains, the sky was somewhat gloomy, and the wind was howling all around. If Lin Xian did not have a strong will, he would have thought that he had arrived at the Scarlet Plains. However, he knew that this was all an illusion. Then, he was surprised again because he found that the wind shadow sword at his waist was gone, and the high-grade spirit rank inner armor on his body was also gone. What replaced it was an ordinary black armor, and a black iron longsword. It seemed like he couldn't use his own treasures and could only use the weapons and armors provided by this space. Lin Xian seemed to understand the rules here. He gave it a try and found that he could use his spiritual energy to form a red lotus armor. In other words, his strength was not affected. However, he quickly removed the red lotus armor. According to his speculation, if he died here, it would only mean that he had failed the test. He would not really die. Therefore, Lin Xian would not miss such a wonderful opportunity to fight. He gave up on the red lotus armor and decided to use the most ordinary weapon to fight. A figure condensed on the Scarlet Plains in front of him. That person was also wearing black armor and holding a black iron sword. He wore a black mask on his face and looked like a messenger of the netherworld. Lin Xian could tell from the other party's aura that he was a half-step venerable one. Looks like the first floor is easy. Lin Xian smirked. A half-step venerable one was nothing to him. He held an ordinary black iron sword and drew a black bolt of lightning in the air, instantly stabbing the other party's throat. Poof! The black figure fell and turned into spiritual energy, disappearing from this space. However, two more figures soon condensed. A black sword and a black mask. They were both half-step venerable ones. Lin Xian's expression did not change, and he continued to stab with his sword. The black iron sword moved in the air, instantly forming two sword shadows that stabbed towards the two black-clothed martial artists. Buzz! Bang! The two martial artists counterattacked, and one of them retreated like a black ghost. The other formed a seal with both hands, condensing an ancient shield in front of him that covered his entire body. Both of them were very fast and completed in an instant. However, Lin Xian's sword was even faster. Poof! Poof! The two figures fell and disappeared. Although the two of them counterattacked, the difference in strength between them was too great. They were not Lin Xian's match at all. However, Lin Xian was slightly surprised. That was because he realized that the two half-step venerable ones had begun to make the best adjustments to counter his attack. Lin Xian's sword was very sharp and fast. Therefore, one of them reacted quickly while the other strengthened his defense. They were changing according to the characteristics of Lin Xian's sword technique. Interesting. I wonder what's going to happen next? Lin Xian was looking forward to it, and continued to move forward. Soon, his figure swayed and disappeared from the first level. In the outside world, countless people were staring at the trial tower in the center. They saw that all 234 light spots had arrived at the second level. However, some of those light spots were fast, some were slow, and some were fast. Did they pass the first level? Those people saw the changes in the light spots and discussed in low voices. They realized that after arriving at the second level, the changes in the light spots were even more obvious. A small portion of the light spots only paused for a moment on the second level and immediately rose to the third level. However, most of the light spots remained on the second level. Lin Xian was one of those people at the moment. He had already arrived at the third level. On the second level, there were 3 half-step venerable ones and 4 half-step venerable ones respectively. For Lin Xian, who had condensed his martial soul, the battle was quickly resolved. On the third level, there were also black-clothed martial artists, but their cultivation had become first-level venerable ones. A venerable was already a powerhouse of a region. That was also the reason why Senmu College set the rule that as long as one passed the third level, one would be considered to have completed the trial. Defeated venerable ones were qualified to enter Senmu College. However, it was not easy to kill a venerable one. Most people would find it very difficult. Of course, Lin Xian was an exception. He had killed more than one venerable one. Therefore, he passed the third level easily. In the outside world, everyone exclaimed because they realized that a few light spots had quickly arrived at the fourth level. At that moment, most people were still struggling on the second level. They passed the third level so quickly? Everyone was shocked and could not believe it. Rumor has it that the opponents on the third level are first-level venerable ones. I didn't expect those people to finish them so quickly. Chapter 710. There were a total of 5 people who entered the fourth level first. They were the top 5 in the second round. These 5 people had condensed real martial souls and reached the venerable realm. In addition, they were geniuses and had mastered many secret martial arts, so it was easy for them to pass the third round. However, the fourth round was not so easy because there were 2 level 1 venerables. When 2 venerables joined forces, their attack power was absolutely terrifying. Although Lin Xian had killed venerables before, he had never killed 2 venerables at the same time. Even at the Divine Bird Palace, one person was sent out first. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian's eyes lit up. He knew that this was the beginning of the real battle. In the other illusory realms, the geniuses also looked solemn as they stared at their opponents. At this time, many light spots had entered the third level, but soon they disappeared. Then, figures were sent out of the trial and landed on the square. These people were pale and their breathing was chaotic. They were all warriors who had failed on the third level. Not everyone had reached the venerable realm. If one did not have the corresponding strength to face a real venerable, they would only be defeated. The third level was like a natural chasm, blocking the majority of martial artists outside the door. More and more warriors were sent out of the square. The spectators gasped. At the same time, they were even more shocked by the red spots on the fourth level. How powerful were they to be able to pass the third level in such a short time? In the fourth level, Lin Xian's figure was like a ghost. The black iron sword in his hand kept stabbing out like thunder, tearing the air apart. The 2 venerables on the other side were not weak. They quickly counterattacked. Terrifying light shrouded the surroundings. Every time they collided, the powerful energy produced a shocking explosion. The black iron sword was like a swimming dragon. Lin Xian used the great strength sword soul to fight against the 2 venerables. The wind whistled, the thunder was crazy, the sky was dark, and the earth was sinking. Fortunately, they were in an illusory realm. Otherwise, the entire square would be destroyed in one blow. Peacock spreading tail! One of the venerables shook his spear. The sky was full of dazzling spear flowers. Silver light flickered like a peacock spreading its feathers in the air. A vast and terrifying aura instantly enveloped Lin Xian. Vermilion bird seal! Lin Xian struck out with his left hand and a crimson vermilion bird flew out. Its entire body was bathed in fiery light as it soared into the sky. The 2 forces intertwined and continuously destroyed each other. At this moment, the other Supreme Expert's attack arrived. Dense blood palm! Bloody light surged and spread 3,000 meters, covering the entire sky. A bright red palm condensed and appeared above Lin Xian's head. Then it crashed down. Starburst! He raised his right hand and stabbed his sword into the sky. The black sword gleam shone brightly as sword she gathered. Pulling in the spiritual energy in the surroundings, it quickly condensed into a meteor. With a dazzling tail of light, it flew upwards. Boom! The black meteor collided with the blood-red palm. The palm closed its 5 fingers and grabbed it, then quickly smashed it down. Meteor sword she exploded in midair. Terrifying sword waves swept out in all directions, turning into waves that could be seen by the naked eye. Kill! Lin Xian shouted angrily. He used the illusory demonic steps and rushed towards the 2 Supreme Experts. In his hand, the black iron sword was no longer ordinary. Streaks of blazing sword gleams soared into the sky, splitting the void and cutting the ground. They continuously bombarded the 2 Supreme Experts in black. Boom! 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 Every strike was fierce and violent to the extreme. Lin Xian was like a madman. The more he fought, the braver he became. In the end, he directly engaged in close combat. The iron sword was like a black angry dragon. It roared ferociously as the dragon sword's soul was activated to the extreme. Poof! Finally, he found an opportunity to stab the spear's supreme expert with the sword. The illusion was very realistic. Blood splattered everywhere as the sword slashed down. Woo-woo! After succeeding with one strike, Lin Xian stepped up his attack. The black iron sword turned into a poisonous dragon and chased after the supreme expert. 13 styles of gale! Sword chi surged like a storm and quickly pierced towards the spear's supreme expert. The void was pierced, and the terrifying sword gleam was unstoppable. Lin Xian's goal was simple. He wanted to kill one of them first before dealing with the other. Roar! The spear's supreme expert was furious. A demonic peacock condensed on the tip of his spear. It was becoming more and more realistic. Poof! As the spear pierced out, the giant peacock attacked as well, making the power of the spear extremely terrifying. The five-colored spear gleam created a demonic shadow in the air. It was like a surging divine light that rushed towards Lin Xian. Clang! 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 Lin Xian swung his iron sword, forming a half-moon sword veil around his body. It was as if the moonlight scattered in front of him to protect him. The five-colored spear gleam was blocked, but the other supreme expert behind him suddenly attacked. His palms were suffused with golden light. Lin Xian tried his best to dodge, but he was still swept in the shoulder. His body immediately smashed into the ground like a meteor. Boom! The ground trembled, and a terrifying deep pit appeared. Whoosh! In the next moment, Lin Xian soared into the sky. His body was covered by a sword veil as he charged again. Although he was injured, he could not rest in this situation. He had to solve it as soon as possible. The dragon sword so roared, and the entire sky trembled. At this moment, Lin Xian's combat power was raised to the extreme. His entire body was like a divine sword. He stood in the void, and his body was emitting a dazzling light that lit up the dark sky. Lin Xian took a step forward and arrived in front of the sanguine palm venerable in an instant. He swung his iron sword quickly. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. In an instant, it cut the sanguine palm venerable's shoulder, revealing his terrifying white bones. Vermilion bird seal! At the same time, he formed a seal with his left palm and hit the sanguine palm venerable's hand, sending him flying. The iron sword fell again like a black lightning bolt, cutting the sanguine palm venerable apart. The first supreme expert was destroyed. Roar! The long spear venerable roared and charged again with his spear. Squall style! Lin Xian raised his iron sword in the air and made a killing move. A gale blew, and a red storm blew on the sanguine plain as if it was going to tear the world apart. The mountain peak was shattered, and the trees were blown away. Everything was destroyed wherever the red storm passed. In an instant, the long spear venerable was covered and let out a miserable cry. The red storm was everywhere within 100-meter radius, and the entire ground caved in. However, before the power disappeared, Lin Xian's figure turned into a ray of light and disappeared. In the other illusory spaces, Murong Qingqing's jade-like palms shone as if they were the hands of God. She crushed a venerable with one palm. Following that, she changed her palm into a finger and pointed it out. A thick finger light was like a flood dragon, and it was extremely terrifying. Soon, her figure also disappeared from the 4th level. The other people were still fighting bitterly. In the outside world, everyone waited patiently. Suddenly, they seemed to have noticed something and stood up excitedly. The 5th level! Someone appeared on the 5th level! There are 2 of them! Everyone was in an uproar. The difficulty of each level of the trial tower increased exponentially, and the 4th level was 10 times more difficult than the 3rd level. This was something that everyone knew. However, in such a short period of time, 2 people had successfully broken through. It was too unbelievable. Chapter 7:11. The changes in the trial tower caused a sensation among the crowd. 2 people entered the 5th level. One of them must be Murong Qingqing. Who is the other one? He's also so powerful. Everyone recognized Murong Qingqing's strength, but the other person was beyond their expectations. I guess it's Xinyaotian. He's also a genius and comes from the House of Kings. His strength and trump cards are definitely extraordinary. Only he can stand shoulder to shoulder with Murong Qingqing. House of Kings! Everyone was shocked. Then they echoed. It was very likely. I wonder if they can pass the 5th level? Someone said worriedly. It's said that the opponents on the 5th level are 2nd Heaven Venerables. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to pass the 5th level. Murong Qingqing will definitely pass, but the other one might not. Everyone discussed and expressed their own opinions. The official disciples in the square were even more shocked. The strength of the disciples participating in the assessment this time was beyond their expectations, especially the 2 on the 5th level. They could be said to be terrifying. The group of elders from the academy were very satisfied. They stared at the trial tower with smiles. On the 5th level, Lin Xian was in great danger. This was the first time he faced a 2nd Heaven Venerable's head-on. Every attack from the other party made his blood boil and his body tremble. Was this the power of a 2nd Heaven Venerables? Lin Xian was shocked. He only managed to fight against the 2nd Heaven Venerables because he had an offensive saint technique like the Great Dragon Sword Soul. However, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Fortunately, the opponent was not a real human, but a simulation of spiritual power. Therefore, Lin Xian was still confident that he could hold on for a while. Gale style! The iron sword slashed out, and a red storm swept through the world, enveloping the opponent. The black-clothed Venerable's spiritual power jumped and formed an armor to resist the red storm. At the same time, he punched out with his fist, which smashed toward Lin Xian like a mountain. Once a 2nd Heaven Venerables entered, their speed, strength, and defense would all surpass a 1st Heaven Venerables. Hence, under normal circumstances, a 1st-level Venerable would not be able to contend against a 2nd-level Venerable. Fortunately, Lin Xian had many secret techniques, as well as a powerful martial skill Sword Soul, so he was able to deal with them for a while. Lin Xian's figure turned into a sword light as he tried his best to dodge and engage in a fierce battle with the black-clothed Venerable. In another illusory realm, Murong Qingqing was also battling a 2nd-level Venerable. The energy in the sky surged violently as countless afterimages flew around. A terrifying aura spread out between heaven and earth. Murong Qingqing was like a fairy descending from the heavens. She stepped on a jade lotus platform, and lotus flowers danced around her body. The sparkling and translucent petals spun rapidly, sometimes defending, sometimes attacking. Every time they collided, there would be a thunderous sound. Terrifying energy tore through the void and roared incessantly. Although Murong Qingqing was at a disadvantage, he did not show any signs of losing. While Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing were fighting against the 2nd Heaven Honorable Realm, the other geniuses had also passed the test of the 4th level and reached the 5th level. However, when they reached the 6th level, things did not go so smoothly for them. The might of a 2nd Heaven Venerate had completely suppressed them, causing them to be severely injured right from the start. Xinyaotian's 108 starry halos shone brightly, making him look like a god of war. When he punched out, starry light filled the sky as countless meteorite-like fists struck the ground. However, this terrifying attack was shattered by the palm of the black-clothed Venerable. Xinyaotian retreated as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with shock. However, as a genius and a disciple of the House of Kings, he would not be defeated so easily. He waved his hands, and a starry sky map appeared above him. It was extremely vast and shone with a mysterious light. Xinyaotian held the starry sky map and charged toward the 2nd Heaven Honorable Realm like a god of war. However, this terrifying attack was still sent flying by his opponent. It was not that he was weak, but that his opponent was too strong. The starry sky map dimmed and disappeared. Xin Yaotian spat out blood and was sent flying. On the other side, Shaoli was like a saber demon. He held a black iron saber in his hand and swung it wildly. Dazzling saber radiance swept out in all directions like waves, causing the entire void to boil. However, his opponent was too strong. The terrifying suppression made him feel helpless. A terrifying fist filled the entire sky and instantly shattered the saber radiance in the sky. At the same time, it charged toward Shaoli. Boom! Shaoli was hit hard and fell to the ground. In the last illusion, the blue and white palm kept changing seals. Huge poisonous scorpions, spiders, pythons, and all sorts of poisonous creatures flew out from the void and charged forward quickly. At the same time, he also condensed a poisonous cloud and floated over quickly. The surrounding air dimmed, and purplish-gray poisonous gas filled the air. The surrounding plants and trees withered and died. Even the ground turned yellow as if it had lost its vitality. The terrifying poisonous gas swept through the entire space. The poisonous gas was too powerful. Those below the supremacy realm would definitely die upon contact. Even a first-level supremacy might not be able to resist it. However, his opponent was a second-level supremacy and was extremely powerful. Therefore, even though the blue and white palm had powerful poison, he was still defeated. Soon, the trial tower flickered and 3 figures were sent out of the square. When the crowd outside saw that 5 light spots had gathered on the 5th floor, they exclaimed excitedly. However, they soon realized that 3 of the light spots were quickly dimming and disappearing. In the end, a white light flashed and 3 figures appeared in the square. Did he fail? The crowd was puzzled. Then, they heaved a sigh of relief. There was a huge difference between each level of the supremacy realm. Even prodigies would find it difficult to fight someone of a higher level. The trial tower restricts weapons. I'm afraid that these prodigies' strength has been reduced. Many martial artists analyzed. They knew that these prodigies would be even stronger in the real world. This was because they definitely had heaven-defying weapons in their hands that could increase their combat strength by several times. No, that's Xin Yaotian. Why is he out too? He was defeated too. Then who's still inside? The crowd was shocked. They realized that the situation was different from what they had expected. Lan Bai, Shaoli! Soon, the crowd recognized the 3 figures that had been sent out. Then they gasped. The ones still on the 5th floor are Murong Qingqing and Lin Xian. Lin Xian! After Xin Yaotian understood the situation, his face was terrifyingly gloomy. He stared at the trial tower with a murderous look in his eyes. He was shocked that Lin Xian had not come out yet. He must have just gone in. Just wait and see. He'll come out soon. Xin Yaotian comforted himself. The results of the 3rd round were based on how long one stayed in the trial tower. For example, on the 5th floor, if one stayed for 1 minute and the other party stayed for 2 minutes, the one who stayed for 2 minutes would naturally be ranked higher. Although Xin Yaotian had been sent out early, he still had a glimmer of hope. Lin Xian had just entered the 5th floor. If that was the case, then the situation was not too bad. According to his analysis, Lin Xian would definitely fail and be sent out soon. The surrounding people were also whispering because they did not know if Lin Xian was one of the 2 light spots that had entered first or later. However, no matter what, Lin Xian's strength was already very strong and had shocked everyone. Chapter 7:12. On the 5th level of the trial tower. Lin Xian was like a sword god, surrounded by a huge sword qi. He stood in the air with a solemn expression. It was a rare experience to fight against the 2nd-level supremacy without any scruples. Therefore, in order to prolong the battle, Lin Xian activated the Red Lotus armor. The bright red armor covered his entire body, and the red lotus on it swayed as if it was alive. With the Red Lotus armor, Lin Xian's defense increased by a lot, and it was not as difficult to deal with him as before. At the same time, he abandoned the black iron sword and held the sword of massacre and sword of nirvana with both hands. With the two auras surrounding him, Lin Xian was like the god of slaughter from hell as he stepped through the air. He did not hold back in this battle. Kill! With a furious roar, his body was like a bolt of lightning. He took a step forward and arrived in front of the black-clothed supremacy in an instant. The two swords in his hands quickly stabbed out. The sword of massacre and sword of nirvana were very powerful. In fact, they were not just sword intents but had their own concepts. Although the intent of massacre and intent of nirvana were not complete, they still had their own charm. The black sword chi surged with an aura of death and nirvana. It covered half of the sky, and wherever it passed, the vegetation would wither. Although the black-clothed supremacy was not a real life, he was still formed by spiritual power. This sword also affected him, and his body became a little dim. However, as a second-level supremacy, he was not so easily killed. His palm was like a knife. When it fell, the entire space seemed to be cut open, and the aura of nirvana was also ruthlessly cut off. At this moment, the bright red long sword had already slashed down, accompanied by the sea of blood that filled the sky. The crazy murderous aura swept in all directions, causing the entire sky to turn scarlet. At this moment, there seemed to be only one sound left in the world, and that was to kill. Kill! Kill! Kill to your heart's content! The bright red longsword slashed down mercilessly from the sky. Clang! The black-clothed supremacy did not have any emotions. He was like a killing machine. He threw a punch, which collided with the sword and made a shocking sound. The sea of blood in the sky surged and was sent flying. Lin Xian was hit, and his qi and blood surged. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Meanwhile, the other party was similarly blasted backwards, causing the void to collapse. If someone else was here, they would definitely cry out in surprise. Lin Xian had actually pushed a second-rank venerable master away. This was unbelievable. However, Lin Xian's expression was extremely solemn because he discovered that the other party did not suffer any substantial damage. It seemed like he had no choice but to combine the two swords. In the next moment, Lin Xian clasped his hands together. The pitch-black long sword and the blood-red sword in his hands fused into a red-black demonic sword. Death and slaughter fused together to form a true demonic sword. At the same time, Lin Xian used a killer move, falling stars from heaven. This move was extremely powerful. It was a martial skill that Lin Xian had been practicing ever since he started cultivating. Once he used it, no one had ever been able to dodge it. His body turned into a stream of light. Lin Xian held the demon's sword in his hand and quickly stabbed forward. It was too fast. Lin Xian was so fast that he didn't even leave a trace in the sky. Lin Xian had already arrived in front of the black-robed venerable. Puff! Finally, it pierced through the man's armor and into his chest. Blood spurted out in all directions. The black-robed venerable roared angrily. He waved his palms and slammed them heavily into Lin Xian's chest, sending him flying. Boom! Lin Xian was hit head-on. He was sent flying thousands of feet away and crashed into a huge mountain. In an instant, the huge mountain crumbled, forming countless rocks that drowned him. Boom! In the next moment, countless huge sword chi rushed out and sliced the huge mountain apart, forming a spacious area. Lin Xian, on the other hand, crawled up from the rubble, gasping for breath and coughing out large amounts of blood. Countless cracks appeared on the red lotus armor in front of his chest like a spider web. Especially on his chest, there were 2 deep palm prints. This palm was too terrifying. Several of Lin Xian's ribs were broken, and his internal organs were severely damaged. Fortunately, he had the red lotus armor. Otherwise, this palm would have blown him up. Damn it, what a troublesome fellow! Lin Xian spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were cold. On the other side, the black-robed venerable was not in a good state either. The great dragon sword soul was too powerful. Lin Xian's attack was enough to break through his defense. Moreover, the red-black demonic sword was even more strange. Coupled with the powerful martial technique, falling stars, he was severely injured. A red-black demonic sword was stabbed into his chest. It emitted a murderous and deathly aura that constantly attacked his body. Roar! The black-robed venerable's hair was disheveled. He roared angrily. A powerful force burst out from his body and sent the demonic sword flying. The wound on his chest could not be healed immediately. That was the remnant aura of the great dragon sword soul. Unless there was a special method, it would be difficult to remove the aura of the great dragon sword soul in a short period of time. The black-robed venerable used his method to madly absorb the surrounding spiritual qi to suppress his injuries. In the distance, Lin Xian also roared. He opened his mouth and sucked in the air. The spiritual qi in the air surged, forming a mighty waterfall of spiritual qi that was thousands of meters long. It quickly entered Lin Xian's body. Then, he used the longevity incantation and displayed his powerful recovery ability to quickly repair the injuries on his body. In the next moment, a dazzling light burst out from his eyes. His hands danced. Golden lightning danced in his left hand and condensed into a golden bow. The wind concept in his right hand quickly circulated and formed a green arrow. Ancient secret art, clear wind bow. In the next moment, the power of wind and thunder surged in the void. The terrifying attack was like a shocking rainbow, leaving behind afterimages of wind and thunder. Like afterimages of wind and thunder, it instantly pierced toward the black-robed venerable. Boom! The terrifying power not only interrupted the black-robed venerable's recovery, but it also worsened his injuries. In the next moment, Lin Xian's injuries were mostly healed. His expression was cold. Wearing a bright red armor, he slowly walked over like a fiend god. On the armor, the original red color mixed with the flowing blood. It looked even more demonic. The red lotus seemed to be coming to life. His eyes were like lightning. The great dragon sword soul on Lin Xian's body surged, forming a terrifying force as if it was about to awaken. Boom! Boom! With every step Lin Xian took, the ground would tremble. It was as if the one walking was not Lin Xian, but an ancient giant. An oppressive and heavy aura filled the entire space, making it difficult for people to breathe. Although the black-robed venerable was not a real person, he could still feel the oppressive aura at this moment. He roared angrily, and his body also emitted a terrifying aura to fight back. However, he was injured and the great dragon sword soul in his body was destroyed. In addition, Lin Xian was too strong now. For a moment, he was at a disadvantage. If someone knew about this, their jaws would definitely drop. Lin Xian was actually suppressing a second-stage venerable. Boom! Boom! With every step Lin Xian took, his aura became stronger. The great dragon sword soul also roared to the sky. Then, a dragon-shaped sword shadow condensed in front of him. It was illusory at first, but as the great dragon sword soul roared, it became more and more real. Seeing the dragon-shaped sword shadow, the black-robed venerable roared uneasily. It was as if he was instinctively afraid of it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.